pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Okay, so I'll start off with the introduction. I'm Mackenzie Johns. My husband Corey Johns is in there. Sorry, we couldn't make it to Toledo because there was a car accident on the other side of the bridge. So unfortunately we had to bring him with us. I am Zone 1 Lincoln County 3% lead, and there are Oregon 3%ers here who are very in tune with our communities, our public lands, our public entities. We like to work together. Thank you all. There's some from far that I don't know, some from near that I do. I will have the Forest Service employees introduce themselves, and then we will get started with all of our goals and objectives. So if you would like to start, Michelle, since you were district ranger.
Sure. First of all, thank you for inviting us here tonight. Anytime that we get to come and talk about the Forest Service and exchange information and open up the opportunities for new partnership, it's really exciting for me. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Michelle Jones. I'm the district ranger for the Central Coast Ranger District and the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, which I am stationed here in Waldport, but I'm responsible for the management of the district that runs from Mary's Peak down to North Bend. So Waldport, Reedsport, and then the Cape Perpetual Visitor Center. And I brought some folks with me tonight because they're important folks to get engaged with on different topics, and they know more than me in general on things, so I always bring them for backup. So I'll introduce you to them. So, Joe.
My name is Joe Acosta. I live here in Waldport, and I'm the zone engineer for the forest.
My name is Carl Longren. I'm the logging system specialist here on the Central Coast Ranger District. I've been here 5 years, but I grew up in Florence. I'm a local.
My name is Chris Mays. I'm the fish biologist here in Waldport, and I live in Yachats. I've been here for about a year now.
I'm Rob Sayers, the transportation planner for the forest.
Rob's out of Corvallis.
I'm Vern Voles, the local law enforcement, and I'm excited to be here tonight. I look at this room as another 60 set of eyes, so I need help out there.
Perfect.
Always. All right. Thank you guys all. I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. So what our main cause is we want to stop any unwanted or unneeded closures of Forest Service and public roads. Our goals are work together on any agreements to stop these road closures or to bypass any road closures, start any stewardship programs that we can, implement any scenic byways or public byways, and we also, it's kind of a long-going process, but I also would like to implement alternative escape routes for Lincoln County. That will take a little bit more time than these road closures and what's going on with the Millwright Beaver area. So we can start with what road closures are proposed in what area, and then what impacts these closures may have on this area, especially where we are at on the Coast Range. So I do have maps. I don't know if you brought the big map.
I didn't. When we talked, you said that maybe you wanted an overview of the district and the forest.
Yes.
About to kind of give everyone a base of how we manage and what our management objectives are and stuff like that. And so I have that in this. It's low tech. It's a colored PowerPoint. It's about as exciting as I get. And it's got some road management pieces to it too that talks about how we approach road management, and when we talk about different regulations that we have to follow, like the travel rule and stuff like that, to kind of give you an idea of how we got to where we are right now and where we can go from here. So does that meet what you want?
Yeah.
Okay, so
That definitely.
I have about 25 copies.
We can share.
So if folks can share and send some down here. Actually, this is a bigger pile. That'd be great.
I might get it passing. There you go.
Sure.
just Lynn County CERT, we like PowerPoint.
Okay.
They've been
Yeah.
drilled into
I
us.
need to leave here with one of these, that way I can study. Yeah, I know, you're a.
Actually, here's an extra one.
I don't know if he doesn't make it here.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. It has been bestowed.
Yes.
Big maps.
Okay. Stewardship, if there's some opportunity to partner with you to take care of, kind of monitor the issues out there,
Okay.
then we can, open that gate and talk about that.
And
some more.
how do you feel about that area, the Peterson Ridge area? Would, if we could implement a stewardship program with you to kind of clean up the area, would you be able to patrol a little bit more out there?
I would take help anywhere I can get all, I'm sure this will come up later, but since you're kind of asking about it, the top several enforcement issues that we see locally. Number one, trash. That's just what it is. I mean, sorry, let me back up. This is taking out of any public on public or person crimes. There's some car top here and there, it's very few and far between. I'm not talking about forest products. This is just sanitation stuff, right?
Okay.
So, dumping of trash, dumping of vehicles, and the impact that using public land at your residence has on the land itself. That's the top 3 most time-consuming things we have locally.
Okay. So with the issues with the littering, the obscene garbage, our major issues are not only that, because that I know that's a huge issue for you guys in wanting to keep some of these areas closed. Our issue though is closing some of these areas that have been used for many, many years for hunting and fishing. What kind of access is going to be limited for these hunting and fishing areas? And I guess what would be the benefit of closing them?
Okay, I've got that in here,
Okay,
okay? We got it.
okay.
I got it covered.
Now, our other issue was the limitations to handicapped hunters.
Okay,
People who use alternative, adaptive equipment.
sure.
With water bars and gates being in place, sometimes that adaptive equipment cannot make it around or over.
Yep.
Is that an issue that has been covered in here?
No. But that's something we can talk about.
Okay,
I'm one of those people.
I
Yeah.
am too,
Yep.
so let's go ahead
So's
and
my
get
dad,
started on
so I
that.
get it.
and I'm 70, so it's harder to get
Yeah.
around now.
Yep, I get that.
So,
Full day back.
what are some, I'm trying to word this correctly.
Just shoot.
Uh,
You've heard it.
What are some ways that we can work on either reopening some of these decommissioning roads or keep them from being decommissioned? I know that we do have some watershed issues that does go along with decommissioning some of these roads.
Yep.
What do you see as far as those impacts, negative and positive impacts on decommissioning or keeping roads open?
Well, I mean, clearly the most negative is that it limits public access. And that's not our, that's, unless we're talking about areas where people party and trash and, I mean, most communities around National Forest, you'll see most of those roads closed because of the local, partying,
Abuse
the,
issues, yeah.
machine gun logging, that
I
kind
know
of
when
stuff.
we go out into the forest, we always clean up and take it out with
Absolutely.
us, what the other people have left. We try to
Right.
clean ourselves.
I get that, and that's really the only, when we talk about limiting access for public, that's really the only, there are other reasons that we close roads, and the side effect of that is limiting public access. But we won't, I don't know that I've ever seen the purpose to close a road for limiting public access. It's mostly related to access related to, roads along stream bottom, stuff like that for resource concerns. But, it's mostly, trying to maintain a sustainable road system with the funding we have. That's really what it boils down to. It's not about, trying to keep the public off of public lands. That's never our goal. That's not what we want to do, but we also have to balance a lot of other things with that, and sometimes that's what happens. So, you'll never hear me say, well, we need to close that road because we don't want the public back there, and that's not the case.
What about the administrative use only roads though? Why are those closed off to the public? And are they still maintained?
Some of the
Depends on the road, actually.
Yeah, it could be for, it'll be an administrative closure because there's a power line access. That's really, the bulk of the BPA or other electric companies still want to maintain access in there, and they sometimes get a lot of vandalism on their utilities, so we'll get some of those. Pretty rare.
Yeah, sometimes we get, we're in, trying to think, like Weyerhaeuser closed the road between Thousand Line and Fall Creek. That's their road. We have administrative access because of our easement. We don't have public access. And so so we can go in there for administrative access to, do whatever we need to do. But we don't have the ability to open that up for public access because it's not our road.
Whose road is it?
Warehouses.
Do they?
So we have an easement on their road. We have a right to use their road for administrative use, but we don't have a right to open it for public use.
So does Weyerhaeuser actually outright own it, like title-wise, or is it leased, or what type? How is that property
What
theirs?
authority?
Managed.
Because
It's
these,
their-
these
it's
roads
their road.
do cross
Who
Forest
owns-
Service land,
I
correct?
think what he's asking is who owns the property underneath the road?
Warehouses.
They own title to the property.
Yes.
Even though this
But
is built across Forest Service property.
It's not built across Forest Service property. It's built on Weyerhaeuser Road, but they allow us to drive across their road to get to National Forest land.
So if my neighbor wants to go have access to their property, which is landlocked, and they have an easement so they can access that property, even though I own that property, I have to allow them free use of that access to gain access to their property. This land
You
belongs.
could gate that road and give them the key to it.
Okay, well, this land, Forest Service land, Bureau of Land Management, all the other federally owned land belongs to the people of the United States.
Absolutely.
And so I'm one of those people. And so to deny me access to land that is my birthright, I was born here, I grew up here, I live here, to deny me access to that land because it's only allowed for government officials to use the access, that's not acceptable.
So we have very few roads that actually have a gate on it for administrative use. And those roads are only for administrative use and wouldn't be blocked up for us too, is because of access to BPA power line. They need access to it, so the power company needs access to it. So we don't close those roads, we allow that. We rarely go in there for administrative use ourselves. We don't need to be back there, BPA does, and so some of those have BPA gates on them. We have, most of the time when you have mixed land use, Forest Service, Weyerhaeuser, Forest Service, we entered into a reciprocal easement where they have access across National Forest, and we have access across them. But it was not a public, at the time that they did it back in 1910, 15, some of ours go back pretty long ago.
That wasn't U.S. Forest Service back then.
It was
That
Department
was-
of Agriculture.
That was state owned.
That was Department of Agriculture. um, it was, at the time they did it, it was not included, public use wasn't included. There's not really a whole lot I don't have any ability to manage what Weyerhaeuser does. But I do have the ability to manage what we do on our roads, so, I know that road up that they closed between Thousand Lion and Fall Creek has been, really disappointing to a lot of people. But that really didn't have a decision to do with.
Is there an
Who
alternate road
manages
to that area?
Weyerhaeuser?
Weyerhaeuser does.
Well,
But
it was Plum Creek land that they bought.
it would seem to me that, I mean, if everything worked right, the federal government would be suing Weyerhaeuser to open those roads across their land to allow public access to our land.
public
If the federal government was doing what they're supposed to be doing, you would be opening those roads up for us. People would be suing Weyerhaeuser in federal court to demand that they take those gates off those roads. When you drive 30 miles hunting on state and federal land, and you get to a place where Weyerhaeuser owns this section and they own this section here, and this one are state, and the road goes right through the corner and there's a gate on it, and you gotta backtrack 40 miles out, it's, I mean, in my opinion, you guys should be the ones federal government should be suing Weyerhaeuser to open those gates.
Well, and then that opens up the topic for emergency personnel. If a hunter 30 miles in and the closest route is that gate right there, it takes them that much longer to get a key to that gate. So, I mean, I completely understand. That's a very valid point.
Somebody that's injured and need of rescue, and they're on the other side of the gate because they went the long way.
You have keys, don't they?
Yeah, so, I can't speak for everybody, most law enforcement and most of the local fire, have keys to the Weyerhaeuser gates and what used to be Plum Creek gates. So that still is access, and if I don't have a key, I have a bolt cutter in the back of my truck.
That doesn't do us any good as the public that's out there.
Now, what about the
I totally understand.
We've also seen the gates that bolt cutters don't work on, so.
That's like saying,
You know that's true.
that's like saying you don't need a fire extinguisher in your house because you have a fire department.
When they had the law enforcement here in Lincoln County have to respond up by, what was it, very speak in the Hazel area?
an OnStar, a lady got lost up in
They couldn't
the
get
woods.
to her. It took the sheriff's department an extra 3.5 hours just to go and get the keys for that gate to get back up there to go and find her. And then she ended up getting herself out of that area. It was all over the Lincoln County scan. That's very well documented.
How dispersed
incident that
are
happened
you?
today.
Okay, so I have no knowledge of that before you just said it.
That's
right
like
now.
a 3.5 hour delay just to get somebody a key to get to that injured person, but they were able to get themselves out and around the gate on their own.
Yeah, I was in Portland and I heard that, so.
Okay, well, that seems to me
So that's great that you guys have keys and stuff, but, I mean, 3.5 hours, that's life or death for people.
Sure,
you know? So we need to figure out how to get that.
How a
down
response,
to
get a quicker
do we
response
know if
time.
that was a Forest Service gate or if that was a,
It ended
private
up being
timber company gate?
the Plum Creek gate.
okay, so you're asking the government to have keys to private landowners' gates?
Well, you're just saying you got access through it. Through gates, you guys have access.
You do, as a
Yes.
Forest Service
But
law.
not
As
as,
law enforcement,
Sure.
not as general.
so you're just telling him that you can get access to those keys.
We're
or
talking
you
about the
should have
emergency
those
response time for having to wait for either you or
Sure.
the sheriff's department and getting somebody who's either injured, lost, or completely disabled, stuck. So that's the major issue is why have those gates there if it's gonna cause more of a delay when we are on public lands if that gate is, or the roads are going through private lands. Your response time is cut so much.
Because of
And that
easement.
actually puts us more in danger in the long run. And so we need to figure out what you guys can do, and the sheriff's department, and all of us, to maybe remove these gates, because it is a public safety concern.
Sure, I understand. Yes, sir?
It seems like this issue about gates opening and what is the purpose of it? Why do they have a lock gate? What is the primary reason to lock the gate?
Keep people off of it.
For who? For National Forest or
Well-
warehouse?
Well, no. You're saying that the gate is put up by warehouse.
Yeah,
They have land there.
Yeah.
Is the access to public land being closed off by them? Is that the only way? Or as some people have said, is it, a 30-mile workaround? That doesn't seem like a good idea. Now, I understand private property and they have rights, to protect their property. But are they protecting the property from theft, from vandalism? Or are they just saying, hey, this is our land, you can't come in here?
right.
So,
And if they're doing that, maybe there's a way around that, maybe give them a tax break or something to keep it open to the public or something. Or,
They
if
already
there's
do get a tax break.
Well, okay, and I get that, but I'm saying somewhere give them another perk for keeping it open, and they say that damage or fires or this or that, you know what? The risk of that, even trash and stuff goes down when you have more public out there seeing it.
So, I think somebody was using an example about private property and Forest Service, or Forest Service land on both sides of a corner and then a road going in between. So typically, when we're going through a small corner or a corner of private property, you've got government or state land, usually there will be an easement. So that road will always be open for public access. But like in Plum Creek's case and Weyerhaeuser, because it's at Toledo, between Toledo and Fall Creek, basically, that's 30 miles, 30-mile area. That's a big block of land that we do not cross through their land to access ours. And those are the type of areas that Weyerhaeuser is being very aggressive and closing their lands. And they're not just closing for vehicles; they are closing it for public. Where on our closures, if there is a closure, it's for vehicles, not for public. Okay.
I got something here. Now, not sure on this side. I'm in Snow Peak area. When they actually once in a while did open the gates, there were so many BLM roads you couldn't access anymore. And not only that, now they're charging you like $250 to $500 to go back to access BLM land to hunt.
That's per person.
That's per person.
Is that like a highway thing on
Yeah,
private land?
that's up
In the
on Snow
valley.
Peak out of Sweet Home. You can't get
Yeah.
nowhere. I got 5 to my folks' house. I got 5 access roads. Just going at the end of the road, I can drop down all these different ways. But now we gotta drive 35 miles just to go up one way up, one way down. When they unlock the gates, you can just sit there and count the BLM roads you're passing, and you cannot access them.
So if you're stewards of the people in the land, our concern is what can we do as a community with you to keep the roads open? What realistically can we do as a conservatorship with our group and you to step up and help? Whether it's brush and tree clearing and stuff like that, which keeps the roads open. Or we've gone down roads where, our car's getting a free dusting, because it's so overgrown and stuff. If that's part of the issue, is there a way to do a public outreach to start a conservatorship with the people that are willing to go out and volunteer their time to keep the roads open?
So-
Because we understand you have an important job, you're law enforcement, you're not the gardener. We get that, but there's plenty of us here that are willing to be the gardener to help keep these roads open. I've had 28 surgeries, I'm not gonna be able to hike in. Oh, well, we're not closing it to you in a vehicle, you can walk. No, I can't.
So there's a model for this down in Standing with the Forest Service, down on the Rogue River Siskiyou. And there is a group of citizens like this that came together and said, we want to keep some of these roads open. And they take on road maintenance, and they meet every year and they talk about what roads are going to be maintained.
So you guys let them know, because you're out there, hey, these roads are needing it, or do
Well, I
they go
think
out
it's
and
just an
stand?
annual meeting to agree and say, this area could use some work, this road is looking good, thank you for, what I mean, that kind of stuff, and just talking about roads that could be maintained and left open. So I can tell you about our process on how you can get engaged in that.
We definitely
So this has been going on, in 2005, there was a rulemaking called the Travel Management Rule that required all of the National Forest System to identify a minimally sustainable road system. A system of roads that could be maintained to meet the needs of the management of the National Forest while also being maintained at a level, an adequate level with the funding provided. It's really a funding issue for the most part.
Usually is.
We do have some fisheries issues and stuff like that, but you know, on our ridge tops, it's really not as much of a problem. I hope our fisheries biologist is hoping
He's back there, Mom.
okay. It's not as much of a problem to keep them open, and so we went through this travel management plan and came up with some different objectives, and that was to all of our main roads would retain open, and the ones that link the communities. Like there's a linkage down Yachats. They refer to that as the ambulance route that you can get all the way over without having to go all the way up to Highway 34 and over. So the ambulance route, and we have a map of the key roads that we have, and yeah, and then roads that I think it's in here. Roads that I'm trying to remember.
Are you guys keeping all the RS 2477 roads open?
I don't even know what if you could help us identify our RS 24/7.
I'll go to the archives at OSU.
All right, you can help me. You can help me because you know I'm.
We'll go do that here next week.
Okay.
I'm gonna go bug Sweet Home too. So.
So our short spur roads that provide local access for things like timber harvest and that we don't really need for motorized access to manage it for National Forest, or that it doesn't access all of
you said a key word, we. Does that mean you, the Forest Service, or we, the people?
Well, it's when I say we, I'm talking from a Forest Service standpoint.
Okay,
but I think that it's a public
So-
public land, and so.
Right.
So you have to understand where we're coming from to understand our train of thought on this whole thing. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. In the United States Constitution, it says the federal government will not own these lands. Which means when the state turned these lands over to the federal government, it was simply as a stewardship.
As a
So,
management program.
so you guys are stewards of that land for us, for the state of Oregon. Us as Oregon residents own that property. We have the access and the rights to the access to that property. And there's nobody in this room that's gonna give up that access. You know, what we're here for is to work with you, not against you in any way we can, to keep those roads open. But we're not just gonna lay down and let them be gated off.
So I don't disagree with anything you've said there.
Well, of course you don't. Read your Constitution.
I'm just saying that, you know, so I guess what I was assuming that you thought that I didn't really agree with that, so I do.
You just said you don't agree with that.
No, I do agree with that.
Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
said, is
Okay.
nothing you said I don't agree with, so.
Okay,
I'm agreeing with you.
So those lands belong to us, so what we're here to do is figure out how we're gonna keep them open so that we have access to our lands.
And so from my perspective, you know, I've worked for the Forest Service as a civil servant for almost 30 years. And so I feel as if I'm very honored and privileged to be a steward of that land for the public. And so
And it's good
when
to hear
I
you say
say
that.
when I say we, I mean really I mean the Forest Service, but we are civil servants, and so this is a service job.
That's rather
And so-
refreshing to hear, especially from a federal employee. A lot of federal employees don't say things like that, don't come with an attitude like that. So we're incredibly honored that I'm impressed.
It's refreshing, absolutely.
It's
Thank you.
absolutely refreshing. Thank you. I would like to leave with your card today. I happen to be the Zone 1 leader.
Okay.
Zone 1 encompasses most of northwest Oregon, so it's a pretty big chunk. You're dealing with one of our county leads. The neat thing about me being a zone lead is I see how things work in other counties. Yamhill County has a spectacular annual cleanup program where they get inmates on work release, and then there's the 4-wheel drive club that loves to be up in the woods, and guess what the four-wheel drive club does? Anytime that there's trash dumped up there, and they're up there every weekend, you can count on it. It rain, sun, snow, whatever's going on, that four-wheel drive club is up there. They see garbage getting dropped off, guess what? It's a license plate and a phone call. And somebody is getting a ticket and or jail time, and they're also getting issued a no trespass, because at the point in time where you're breaking the law up there, that becomes a point in time where that ticket through the judge, because of due process, turns into you cannot trespass up here because you break the law up here. So it's very advantageous. And a little side note on these spurs. If you have a road that just goes up over the mountain, and there's no pullouts, no turnoffs, no nothing, there's no place to park, and it makes life horrific trying to go hunting and have access.
Or dangerous.
Those, yeah, and or dangerous. Those spurs are the perfect little landing pads where you can, I see people park 5 vehicles up there, and it's a great place to meet your buddies. Hey, we're gonna go up here, the third one on the left, and we're gonna set up hunt camp, and we're gonna have a good old time.
On our land.
Yeah, and it's an event. You buy your fishing and hunting tickets. You get together with your buddies. You fill your rigs. You fill your coolers. You've already sighted in your firearms. You've gone over a safety brief. I mean, hunting's a big event, and for a lot of us that work 50 hours a week, 50, there's 52 weeks out of the year. We work 50 weeks at 50 hours a week. And this is our break. This is our one little break. And it's so frustrating when we're like, yeah, we're gonna go, and we get up there and there's a frickin' gate. And it's not always the Forest Service. We're discovering it's not always the Forest Service, it's not always the BLM. We're discovering today that, hey, we have private companies out there that are blocking what, for all intents and purposes, should be public access
Right away.
through there.
Once it's a used road, isn't it right away?
It is if you're a property owner and you have a neighbor. If they have access, then you can't deny them access.
I think that there might also be federal law on this, but I'm gonna have to research it, so.
So on the note of volunteers, I don't know if you've worked with volunteers before. I went to the Lynn County Sheriff's Awards a couple weeks ago. Really cool. Sheriff Riley rocks, constitutional sheriff. They were doing awards for the volunteers first. They always do the volunteers. We have the Mounted Posse, we have Corvallis, rappelling. They're the high climb recovery teams for injured and cadaver. We have SAR, which is search and rescue, 14 to 21-year-olds. Greatest search and rescue group in the country. We have CERT, and we have ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Services. We donated 75,000 hours last year to the Lynn County Sheriff's Department in donation time, including SALT, which is the seniors working with the Sheriff's Department to keep their division stations open. But that 75,000 hours, it goes, if you equate that to a regular sheriff's employee, which the average is $25 an hour, you're looking at millions of dollars saved.
Absolutely.
And we actually kept 2 positions within the Sheriff's Department, actual enforcement officer positions, available through the acts of volunteerism. Well, this crew, that's what we do. We step up when it's needed. So if we can get through the process of what we need to do with her, if she can finish telling us what we can do to start that and get back on track there.
We are gonna start that process.
Yeah, I mean, let her finish. She started with the travel management rules and to
Yeah,
identify
Right,
roads.
and so, goal, and that was signed in 2009. And as we go through these watersheds, we do site-specific analysis and determine which roads need to be closed based on kind of recommendations on the travel management plan.
So that's part of his job.
That's part of Rob's
biologist.
job, to identify roads and their conditions, and then we look at it to see what the condition is from a resource standpoint. Is it right? Is it on the stream course? You know, we have listed fish species here, and so it's really critical to keep the roads goes
Away
away
from
from the stream bottoms. But, you know, the ridge top and the mid-slope roads are much better. And so what we do is we go from this size down to something like this, and this was signed, I think, 2 years ago. And that decision was based on recommendations from the travel management plan, plus getting out there, looking at the roads, and
You
then
said it was
BPA.
signed, who
It was
signed
signed.
that?
That one, I think, well, it's my decision. I think the forest supervisor actually signed that, but I have the authority to sign
Was
those.
there input on from the public at that time?
Absolutely. We do all kinds of public engagement and offer.
We just never hear or see anything in the news. We don't
Right,
hear any
right.
reports
So-
that tell people.
How do you
hey,
Right,
reach
this
so
out
is
to the public to let them know?
news releases aren't a really great place for to hear news about what's going on the Forest Service for a couple of reasons. One of them is that it's up to the local newspapers whether or not they actually want to
run a story.
run a story. And so for like Indian Creek, the focus around Mapleton, Florence, that area. And so, you know, the Florence newspapers ran those. And it was just recently, I think it was a Slow News Day that they ran the Indian Creek one
We've
up
been there,
here.
done
New-
that.
and
Do you keep a website where maybe we can go and check for
Yeah.
things like this? And
we
then
do have a website, and I have a handout for you that has the website on there.
Good.
And so we do public meetings, we do public field trips, we have opportunities to provide written comment, both at the very early period of it and at the very end of it. And we produce what we call environmental assessments. And it's a document. And if you've worked with the Forest Service or the BLM very much,
They like their paper.
we analyze things. And so we do things a little different here on the Siuslaw. We have very strong forest collaboratives. If you want to engage in kind of the management of the forest as a whole, based on, well, we have 5 different stewardship groups that are what other forests called forest collaboratives. And they're a group of just interested people and organizations that are interested in the management. We have one down on the Oregon Dunes, so if you know folks that live kind of Florence, Reedsport, south that area, there's a new one that we just formed. It's called it's the Smith-Umpqua Stewardship Group. So Smith-Umpqua Dune Stewardship Group. Sorry,
Say that 10
there are
times
like 5
fast.
different names. So, and then as you come up, if folks are really interested in the Siuslaw River and that Siuslaw River drainage, Mapleton, Florence, Swiss Home, that area more, then we have the Siuslaw Stewardship Group. Coming up this way, we have the Alsea Stewardship Group, which is the Alsea River plus kind of the mid-coast kind of area, and then we have Mary's Peak, which kind of forms that Mary's Peak area, and those group engages, we don't rely specifically only on those groups for public engagement, but it's an opportunity to get engaged in any of that, and quite frankly, your perspective does not get represented very often in these groups. So, yeah.
So this one was signed in 2 years ago, you said?
Yep.
And you guys had meetings and public input on
Yep.
this. When and where were those meetings held?
Those meetings were held out in the field. We had field trips. We had a public meeting. Where do we have that meeting?
What time?
In the evenings.
In the evenings?
And we can have field trips on Saturdays. We've done that. We
Yeah,
try.
we would have had almost double this number if it wasn't a Thursday night.
Right.
Crazy. You would have been
Yeah.
like,
Work
oh,
night.
man,
The taxpayers have to use it.
Because if the meetings are being held at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sure 90% of us wouldn't have made it here.
Because we're at work.
No, I get that. Yeah, no, we get that.
It was
Because it
nice
was, I had
enough
to take
for
a day off
Michelle
work
to
just
work
to
with
forward.
Alex.
I did too.
I did too.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful day at the beach, so.
So the conservatorships that are already in place,
Yeah.
what are they doing? Does it have anything to do with this, what we're trying to prevent?
Yes,
Us?
they're very engaged. They also, so if you're looking for stewardship and ways to, you know, like my impression is that this group also was like hunting, fishing type of people
Yeah.
interested. It's just a hunch on my
Slightly.
part, I don't know, but,
Could be the antlers on the
right,
roof.
that's right. So there are opportunities to do things like create meadows for big game and you know, help out with riparian area planting. Like if you sometimes if you have a meadow, people are running cows and they want to, you know, put a riparian area along there to kind of keep the cows away from the stream. To help that, we generate money through our timber sales to do that kind of work. We generate about $400,000 a year, $400,000 to $500,000 a year, that goes to off-forest projects. It just has to, like if it's in a state watershed of national forest, it just has to have a kind of a connection to improve national forest lands. And those, and so we work with those groups on those types of projects, and we give them $400,000 to $500,000 a year to do stewardship projects out on the landscape. But they come with the proposals, and they agree to which proposals get funded and that kind of stuff. And so I can see potential opportunities for that if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
I think we're more focused at this point on keeping our right-of-ways
Okay.
accessible.
Right.
So whatever it's geared towards that.
So the project-specific types of meetings, the field trips, that kind of stuff, would probably be more up your alley.
Right, so we
Okay,
can see
so
where you're talking
yeah,
about.
so you can get engaged in that. We have a website that has all of our information on the projects. I have a clipboard right here that we can get your name, phone number, mailing address, email, and you can say, I'm interested in roads, timber, recreation, hunting, fishing, whatever.
Trash, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, and we keep a list. And so when we initiate projects, we'll either put out email or mail, depending on what you prefer. And you can get engaged in that. We can work specifically one-on-one with your organization to talk about specific projects you guys want to work on.
So will this help get ungate any of these roads?
Potentially,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Because really what we're looking at is, it's really all about our ability to maintain our road system.
Okay.
And it's not about limiting public access. I
That's
want
why
you to
said
hear
we
that
wanna
from this
focus.
standpoint. We
That's
don't
why
want to
we wanna
limit public access.
So,
It seems like
go ahead.
when you need to do you specifically, if you have to do something to ensure that the fish are getting from A to B, you have to close a road to do some work down there. When you're finished with that work, does the road get open? If the road is interfering, like with the stream, it's too close to the stream, it may cause debris, would you move the road and then reopen it again?
Yeah, there would be some situations where you'd be able to create the road further upslope away from the stream
So
in order to minimize those adverse effects.
Well, I mean, I worked with ODOT and traffic control for a while, contractors as well. It seemed that what they did, they had to do work. What they did first was they built a temporary roadway, or in this case, they knew permanent right-of-way. This way, you were not adversely affecting the hunters, the fishers, the hikers, the campers, etc.
So the alternate route was put in before you closed the road.
But how often is an alternate route put in before you, or when you decide on that decommissioning of the road so that you can work on the area zone?
I think it depends mostly on the volume of traffic that's typically seen out there. And maybe
So what would be the level maintenance on it then? Or the maintenance level on it? Would you put it as a maintenance level 1, 2? Would you keep it open for road traffic?
It depends on the road, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say that. We have scenarios where we close the road, we decommission it, we pull out the culverts. We have situations where we don't decommission it, but it's really just kind of semantics. It's in effect, our maintenance level 1 roads are in effect decommissioned. The only difference is the semantics for us when we come to register it in our database. We don't take those roads off of our system. We keep them there. We say, yes, we're gonna need that probably in 15 or 20 years to go back in there to rethin or to do whatever we were doing.
It's just
in there.
kinda colored purple.
It's just, yeah, it's out there. It's not hurting the landscape. We don't need it right now. We don't think we need it right now from a management standpoint, not necessarily for public enjoyment. When it comes to, I'll give you an example though of one that we are doing some work on. It's the Man Creek Road. It's the one that is in Indian Creek. The original proposal was to close that road because it's right along the stream. There's a bridge there that, the bridge will be there, but the road may not be there very long because of the way the stream's migrating across the valley bottom like they do. It's gonna be just a huge expense to maintain that road. It's not doing great things for the coho habitat. And the communities, and there's also some meadows along that road, and the community of Mapleton said, absolutely not, we maintain these meadows, you guys never maintain the meadows, we pick up the trash, blah, blah, blah. I drove down there with the forest supervisor and a couple other folks, and we agreed that, you know what, as long as they continue to maintain it, we can do some stuff to try and keep that road on the landscape as long as we can, with the understanding that we don't have the money to fix it all. We can try to do some environmental engineering, like putting mats across the stream, or on one side of the stream. We can, and there are a couple areas we're looking to move, see if we can move away a little bit. And so that's an example of where it's identified on the travel management plan as being decommissioned. It was a concern for the community. We're able to work it out with them. We're not going to close that road. It's important to them. It links them up to other roads, and we don't have the money to fix it, but we're going to just see if we can do it to hang on for a while.
Isn't that a prime example where getting together with the local community, hey, we don't have enough money to do this, but you guys can volunteer, either chip in a little time or what. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
But what I said was, this road is decommissioning itself on its own because of the stream. It's a large stream. We can't really do anything to stop that right now. We don't have the amount of money we need to relocate that entire road. We don't have the money to replace the bridge. We don't have a lot, but we do have some to do some things to try and keep it on the landscape a little longer. That's kind of what I committed to them. That's what I'll commit. I haven't made the decision yet, but that's what I'll commit to in the decision notice.
Have you guys been in contact with Oregon Emergency Management in general for emergency preparedness?
We talked to, yes, we have a forest safety officer. He does all that. We talked to Jenny Damaris at Lincoln County. She's really
One of the reasons is I went to a couple of the Red Cross meetings with Oregon Emergency Management and CERT about the Cascadia Fault Line. And pretty much, we're gonna miss you guys when that earthquake hits.
right.
And 90% of our bridges, especially on the I-5 corridor, but 90% of the bridges will collapse.
Right.
So where we have forest roads that might be shut now, those roads might be the only way to get out of this.
So right, and
From,
so
from
we
here
have,
to the Cascade
Right.
Range.
So I talked to our safety officer about that, because that was one of the concerns I know that Mackenzie brought up to Jenny at Lincoln County EMS, and we're not closing our main stem roads.
Good.
So we don't have any proposals to close our main stem roads.
Yeah, if you guys are not aware, FEMA's official response to the Cascadia Fault Line giving is Eastern Oregon. They will arrive in Redmond. That's it, and they will funnel
Other side
through
of the
from there.
Cascades.
So that's why it's a huge concern, is it's gonna be bad,
Right.
and we're overdue by over 123 years. So we're
So-
not overdue.
So and the EMS basically, I think what they're relying on is a response from, like Southern California, the military up
Southern
the
California's gonna be affected.
Of the-
Depending on volunteers,
Right.
basically, it's people
So,
like us
What I
that
foresee
can-
is the forestry department having an influx of people going, oh crud, I don't wanna die. Whether Oregon Emergency Management told you that or not,
They haven't
from the
been
general
listening.
public, this is what I've heard, is.
Well,
we're
you
gonna
guys
make
are gonna be
those-
involved in it too, so.
Yeah, you're not gonna have a choice, you're gonna have panicked people hoping.
Open those gates, we're right behind you.
So they haven't been
So
listening.
if what really my point is to this, is that we are not closing any of our main stem roads. Our key roads are gonna be open. And if you can't get down Highway 20, Highway 34, or whatever, you're not gonna be able to get down our main stems, because those roads are built
Excuse me.
to prepare those
Wrong.
better. You don't think?
6 to 7 years ago, we had that really late, heavy snowfall.
Yeah.
I was living in Alsea. Nobody could get in and out of Alsea for 3 days. I'm the only one that made it in town because I took a combination of Forest Service roads and private timber company roads to get to Alsea.
Right on.
That was the only way to get there for 3 days.
Good job, Joe.
So don't tell me,
Anyway, what was your?
there wasn't main stem roads because they were,
Yeah.
I just know the area because I live there.
ODOT has not had any emergency management plans worked out with you guys at all, and either is the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department or the state police that I know of.
Lincoln County
So
does.
when have you made these plans with them, and why are they telling us that you haven't?
Well, that's a good question, because, you know, we attend their
Because you said
meetings,
that
we
you
work with our
already
plans.
talked to the county about it, and that's not correct, because we just talked to
Or
the
if you
county,
did,
they
they're
said
not-
there is
they're not
no
admitting it.
emergency management plans for Section Lincoln
There are
County.
no
A lot of
alternative
people
escape
don't know.
routes in plan in Lincoln County at all.
Well, I knew that,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean we're not engaged with them in
Yeah.
EMS planning,
Which isn't, okay, that makes sense.
right?
So are you guys gonna be attending the meeting next week for the tsunami evacuations and stuff too?
We attend those on a fairly regular basis.
You guys are aware of the one here in Waldport, correct?
Yeah,
You guys are gonna be there?
our safety officer normally goes to those, and we have our safety plan. Really, the folks who really engage with the EMS are our fire folks, because they're the right people to do that. They're the ones that know how to run the chainsaws and all that kind of stuff. And so our fire management officer, our deputy fire management officer typically goes to those. He's on all the mailing lists, and I'm on the mailing list and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Me personally, I'd be looking for him. He knows the roads. He's out there every day. I'd be like, where do I go? I'm not gonna look for the guy running a chainsaw.
So we can all, sit here and we know that it's a funding problem. It always comes back to a funding problem, always.
But our
Okay.
taxes
And
never reflect
exactly,
that.
okay,
Our
but,
taxes goes
but,
up,
but listen,
but your
okay, just
funding
hold on,
goes down.
alright, just hold on. And
We need to hold a bake
our
sale.
whole infrastructure is failing across the nation. We know that. I was privileged to be able to sit and listen to Secretary Ryan Zinke this last weekend at the Utah Conservation Expo, and he talked about how he opened up a bunch more lands in Utah and yada yada yada. Then I got to sit there and listen to an auction for 44 different auctions, and some of them were in Oregon, some of them were in Utah, and that money from those auctions go to help conservation in whatever area that it's at. And I sat there, and the last auction went for 290 grand, okay, for a mule deer hunt on Antelope Island. So, and it's supposed to go for the conservation for that island.
Yep.
Great. So maybe we need to start spotting out places that need more, put in special tags. The Oregon mule deer hunt tag went for 30, 40 grand. And I understand that.
One tag?
One tag, okay? And I don't doubt, and they said Saturday's auction, they always have a tag on Saturday's auction that always breaks 500 grand. Now, I wish I had that kind of coin, unfortunately I don't. But at least it goes to the conservation side of it. With that said, I grew up on a fish hatchery here in Oregon for 15 years as a kid. And I fished my life away, and I just bought a drift boat again, and I hardly want to go down the river because you can't catch nothing. So you guys talk about salmon runs, and I understand that, that they're diminishing. Well, part of it comes back to funding with a hatchery, or funding here. But what Secretary Zinke said was that when there's a closure or there's something going on with a certain valley, they get 5 different opinions from 5 different departments, and they're all colliding. You know, you can't get one. You got one guy saying, I'm not going to point at you, but you're the fish guy, okay, right? Okay. So you get one guy that says, hey, we need to bring in 5 truckloads of logs and put them in my river, because we need fish habitat. Okay, great. Let's bite on that one. Then you got a guy that goes, dang, my bridge is getting taken out every time it gets flooded because the logs just came down and took my bridge out. So, and I get this strategically placing them don't work. But all in all, it comes back to a funding problem, and I'll bounce it back off of David's comment there out of Yamhill. I've seen Tillamook work their work crews up there, keep their lands open, keep the alder saplings cut away from the road out of no pocket for somebody paying their price for dumping garbage or whatever it might have been. So maybe that needs to be explored a lot more, because it always comes back to funding. Well, there's ways to go around it, you know. And if there's lands getting opened elsewhere, or, you know, I mean, the BLM, you know, if something's landlocked, that ain't right, and we can all agree to that. Well, then we all need to figure out the solution, you know.
We have checkerboard land, private and federal,
Yeah,
private and state,
and
private this, and
if there's private timber companies, granted, they got their own laws and rights, but they shouldn't be able to landlock us. You know,
right away.
no different than spur roads and stuff getting shut down. Totally understand. Oh, it can't be maintained. You know how many times I've driven down a grass knoll and used four-wheel drive to come up out of the mountain? It's part of it. If you take your Prius down there, sorry for your luck. I mean, that's how I feel. Okay, exactly. And it comes back to that. You're either born with it or you'll never get it. But with that said, you know, I own a side-by-side, four-wheelers, and I enjoy using them where I can. I should be able to use them anywhere as long as I tread lightly. You know, I went over to Ukiah, and I mean, we're still in the state, but clear over to Ukiah, and I'll tell you what, you drive down the road, and like you said, no place to park. If you pull off on a skid road, there's a sign, don't travel here. I don't care if it's a muddy dirt road, and you send 100 rigs down it, by that next spring, it ain't gonna be gnarly, I mean, unless you got wheeling crews up there, but they usually tread lightly, you know.
They
so,
take care of their backyard
They
up
do,
there.
because they want to play, and it's no different than the land that just got locked by the BLM over in Redmond area. It's gonna stop. And I mean, I hope you guys are on board, because that's what we want. You know,
Well, I
we
know
want
the
you guys to keep our lands open.
the county, Lynn County was actually the head of it. The lawsuit against the state for mismanagement of public lands, at first it was thrown out, it is now being heard on appeal to go forward with the lawsuit against the state for mismanagement of state lands. So right now, it's not affecting federal lands, but at this point, they are just going after the state for conservatorship of state forest lands. But that could end up affecting you, because all of it kind of mingles together. We have more than 60% of our state is quote-unquote federally or state-owned. So we have a huge amount of land in this state that is supposed to be taken care of by somebody else. We're not even allowed to take care of it unless we get into an agreement and promise to be good and all this stuff.
And we talk about, you know, funding. Well, is 50 grand in funding for putting trees in a river, would have that been better used, putting a barricade for the river to hold the road? Is that more better use, or is it, you know, you got to start weighing those, and it might be different departments, and they all might all clash heads, but in the end, we all got to have the same outcome. It's all got to be open.
Which is healthy wildlands.
Exactly.
That's the bottom
I think one of the biggest problems, and I'm coming from past experience in many different disciplines. The problem is, this man's a fisherman, the other guy's a log man, the other guy's a hunter. They all have their wants and their needs, but rather than compromise, rather than sit down and look at what is the best method that's going to serve the highest good of all concerned, everybody, I want mine, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a good idea, to sit down here and be able to talk to enforcement, to talk to management, to talk to different people. The idea, hey, look, we don't want to go out there and destroy anything. We want to be good caretakers. My personal feeling is the people who are closest to that area are usually the best caretakers. And they're the ones that need to be working with law enforcement, working with fish and wildlife, working with forestry. We don't want to cut down the whole forest. We know what that's going to do, okay? But we want to, hey, look, Israel was a desert. They have trees there now. I know people who spent time in Israel on a kibbutz. It's like, wow, we got more fruits and vegetables here than in the Garden State of New Jersey. I know that is a fact because I'm from Philadelphia, and I thought Jersey beefsteak tomatoes was the greatest thing on sliced bread. However, you can't get them anymore because because Monsanto has GMO stuff now. Or you can't grow 40 acres of it because the federal, and I'm not saying you guys, the federal government, USDA says, oh, you can only grow 20 acres and you gotta grow something else, or you have to have that land available for whatever.
And
We-
by no means do I mean, you know, like, people destroy stuff. I see that, okay?
Yeah.
Me and a few guys went out. I work at the Lincoln City Gun Shop. I sell a buttload of guns, and we send everybody up the 1473 or something right behind the lake, okay? And me and some guys went up there.
1726.
So, there you go. Okay.
Been there?
Because the first time I went up, it was 3 weeks
We
ago.
all know from
And I'll tell you what, when I got up there, I was disgusted. So we all agreed, hey, we cleaned up some while we were there, and we all agreed, hey, we're gonna do a big cleanup. Everybody that's come in the store that I've talked to said, hey, take my name and number. When you clean it up, we'll come up and help. I'm gonna reach out to Lincoln City and see if they'll take the garbage, you know, Lincoln City Sanitary. And as far as that goes, Les Schwab for bags. But that's just one area, and I get that. But there are people out there that clean it up, pick it up, would probably thump the shit out of somebody for, you know, leaving their stuff.
Turn around, don't
So.
touch.
Plug your ears.
Part of this, what we're talking about for education, is actually teaching the kids.
It is.
It's
And
not the kids
when
though,
my
it's
sons
the
were in
adults.
school, he was in a forestry class, and they took a trip at the end of the year, and it was a survival trip. And always part of that trip was to clean up your area. You didn't make the mess, but let's clean it up. And that's one of the things that the teacher was teaching the teenagers.
Well, and that's
And the
why
kids
we're
were
doing
into
that.
it, and they loved it. But the outreach, how do you get to those kids? You know?
Well, it comes back to that common sense comment. No. I mean,
How-
I went on a field trip today for my kid, and I watched half a dozen of them throw it on the ground. We had to
Exactly.
go back behind picking it up. My
Exactly.
kid knows better.
Right.
How does the forestry determine where to get timber logged? How do you guys determine what areas to thin and stuff? I mean, is there,
So,
because I know that's a huge part of you guys maintaining your ability to
Yeah.
have income is selling
yeah,
that
I
timber.
mean, a lot of our roads get maintained through our timber program, and we have a pretty healthy timber program. We grow trees pretty fast, and we are lucky in that we are around a lot of private timberland, so we maintain the mills, the road structure that makes our timber valuable. A lot of other places, when, you know, the mills went out of business, you know, they can't get, you know, the timber's so far away from a mill, it's not economical to get it there. That's a big challenge right now in a lot of the national forests. We don't have that problem here. And so, when the spotted owl and the Northwest Forest Plan hit, okay, everyone's heard of the Northwest Forest Plan, I hope. Yeah.
I know of a field biologist who just finished the spotted owl survey last week.
Yeah.
Towards Multnomah County.
Yeah.
They found zero.
Yeah.
There's none.
Yeah.
So,
When they signed the Northwest Forest Plan, they consciously identified the Siuslaw as a restoration forest, a forest to be managed for late successional reserve or old growth, because we're a relatively small piece of the entire Coast Range, and we're surrounded by private timberland, and so we are a lake successional reserve forest. That is our goal, is to develop old growth forests. And the way we do that is we take the old clear cut burn planted to 250 or higher, 350 trees per acre of Douglas fir. Those plantations are now 20 to 40 years old, and they are very valuable. And so we go in there and we thin. We commercially thin to try and make them bigger trees with bigger branches. Right?
my husband used to cruise timber for
Yeah.
forestry in California.
So we thin them, and with the intention of going back in a second time in 15 years or so, 15 to 20 years, to take off another layer of, and to develop those, to keep the
So do you
growth
guys have like government contracts with a certain buyer, or do you guys auction it to the highest bidder to get the most bang for your?
We have two ways we do it. One of them is, it's called our stewardship sales. It's been around for 15 or 20 years. It's actually technically an agreement, and we identify, it's basically goods for services. So we use the goods, which are the timber, to get services, which are things like snag creation, that kind of stuff. and then we take the money that is bid above that, so you put out a limited bid, they present a proposal, and the bid premium, how much they bid above the base rate, is used to go back into the forest for restoration efforts, okay? Treatment of non-native invasive species, doing
Freaking
some,
blackberries.
replacing culverts, stuff like that. Okay, so that's one, and that's 50% of our annual timber target goes to those type of contracts, okay? And we offer 20 million board feet a year, or 40. So 20 million board feet a year go to that, okay? It generates annually about $1.2 to $1.5 million worth of those retained receipts that go back into the land. The other piece of that is we have our traditional timber sales where we go out, mark the boundaries, and it's the highest bidder. The stewardship contracts are for best value, so we don't technically have to go for highest bidder, but traditionally all of our stewardship contracts have gone to the highest bidder, and then the other ones are highest bidder.
That's good, because that gives, like I said, the most bang for your buck, and stewardship, that's your job. Your job is to make money to take care of the land, so kudos to you for that.
On the stewardship contracts, every one of those work items has a different contractor, so that it's another way to bring the.
I just hate hearing about, you hear about the government contracts that, not forestry, but other areas of the government, and you find out, well, they got the contract, oh, and look, she's the daughter of so-and-so who is in Congress, so I don't wanna hear about his sister-in-law wanted a job, so we gave her the contract, you know what I mean? So, as long as it's an open bid where we're getting the best we can for the products that you're providing, amen. I like it.
So Michelle, if I could share a story about on the north end of the forest. So, this gentleman mentioned the 1726 and Devil's Lake area. I, about 2 months ago, met with the Cougar Mountain Riders, and judging by this group here, you probably have some members of the Cougar Mountain Riders up out of Lincoln City. So, it's on the north end of the district, or the forest, so it's another district, the Hebo district, but they were going through the same planning process, and we met on a Saturday because the Forest Service is proposing to close, I think it's 4 short roads, about a total of 1.5 miles. So they wanted to go out there and see what we were proposing and why. And I spent about 2 hours walking each one of those roads with them, and they agreed that, yeah, those need to be closed. There's a lot of resource damage. There's not much we can do other than block them off, and then we looked at the roads that we're going to keep open. And through our dialogue and spending a couple more hours out there, we actually ended up closing a couple more that they said, can you close this road because, and it's near that shooting area. There's people that camp out, and there's tweakers, and they basically said, we don't even like to walk that road to get to our hunting site, so is there any way that you can close that road, restore it, open the stream up and stuff? So through our field meetings, we do like to get feedback, get comments, and
It's a good
as Michelle said, this area doesn't get a lot of the representation that we're hearing today. So
the road you're closing though, maybe they could serve another purpose if you looked into it. And I get that you talked to the Riders Association or whatever, but maybe it could loop around as a motorcycle trail or something, say up in, like they do it up in Tillamook,
Oh yeah,
and things
absolutely.
like that.
That's part of the process. These that we were looking at, of course, were really short, and there was resource damage. Codes were all plugged up and not worth replacing. But yeah,
Sure.
oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying there might be other options. Just instead of saying, "Hey, we're going to close it," you can't even go down there.
Absolutely.
Or you can walk in or whatever. I mean.
Oh yeah, the Cougar Mountain Riders are really engaged in getting loop roads for their ATVs.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty large ranging group. There is another ranger district just north of here. We forget it. No, we don't really forget about Hebo. It's a great group up there. Hebo Ranger District. Debbie Wilkins is the ranger up there.
Okay.
And they're out of Hebo, Cloverdale.
Yeah, I'll be touching base with them. I grew up at Evo, Cedar Creek Fishing.
So on a law enforcement end of it, how is it, for those of us who want to be your forestry neighborhood watch, what is the easiest way to get a hold of you and go, hey, we found a problem. Hey, we want to stop this. What do we do? I mean, instead of 911.
Smoke signal. You're going to need
No fires, no fires. Because as partnership to support you guys in your job, because you have the legal authority
doodads. We would wanna get a hold of you and go, hey, we're watching so-and-so, and Tom, our videographer, has him up close and personal, now who do we call? I don't wanna call 911 and go, hey, can you find that ranger guy? We met him once, you know, so
Well,
if there's an
also,
official way
how
to
much-
shortcut to the forestry department for emergencies, that's.
How much are you working with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department as
Work with them
well?
all the time.
Do they patrol those areas?
Yes.
I have the contact information of the gentleman.
Yes, they
The
sure do.
The sheriff deputy patrol.
Lincoln County has co-op with us that they supplement patrolling forest land, and they also have contracts with Weyerhaeuser and Darker and what used to be Plum Creek and everybody else. They have a designated forest deputy.
So those ones are assigned strictly to Weyerhaeuser property then, I
No.
would assume? Not necessarily?
No.
It's all over.
Yeah, so Davies used to do it, Nick's the guy that does it now. Yep. Nick's really good.
So I'm gonna go ahead and pass this around. If folks are interested in being on our mailing list for knowing about these projects, and the projects will include, timber harvest, proposed road closures, proposed aquatics restoration, proposed wildlife habitats.
What about the middle section of Drift Creek? Is that your guys' property or is that warehouse or not?
Middle section of
The Drift Creek Wilderness?
Drift Creek here.
I'm sure all the guys.
That's ours.
That's ours.
That's separate code.
That's ours.
That's separate
That's
code.
part of
Yeah, you guys plan on closing that too,
How do
right?
we keep our gates?
Which road?
You go to Drift Creek.
The way
Okay.
we're gonna keep our roads out.
It's right off of 1,000.
The 10:30?
Yeah.
We need to
Is all
see
that
this
square?
down
Because you're
there.
letting
No,
them
not
State.
10:30.
If it
10:30
is, we're gonna
connects,
have a road.
makes a big loop at 10:06.
Yeah, that's all warehouse.
Her, what we do
That's all
is it
warehouse?
says
Yeah,
that
we
need
don't have a
to
say
form
in that.
little team.
So you guys
That's
aren't,
what he was
they are
asking
gonna
for.
close that then, even though it's going from Mox's?
Oh, no, that are.
I haven't heard that. They
The
closed
Forest Service biologist, I was
We're
just
gonna work
working
on
there last
programs
fall,
to
they told me you guys plan.
Full drive, not
And then I
up
can
to.
just like show you.
It will be put up to the public to put some input into either A, start a stewardship program in that area, or see what kind of budget we be able to put in.
So, yeah, so level 2 roads are open road, passenger roads.
I think,
If we gate them or put them in a storage, we move their maintenance level to a 1.
Okay,
So we change the maintenance.
my question is there, when you decommission or store them, put a gate in, water bar, or anything that has to be done, how much extra money are you spending in the budget to do that to versus in those 5 years down the road, removing that gate, removing the water bar, and re-maintaining it?
Or for instance, say, you know, you put it at a level 1, you call it unpassable, or something, your guy here says that it's passable with ambition, okay? So, your Joe Blow rig may not make it down it, but my huge 4-wheel drive, or my side-by-side, or my quad, shy of getting a horse, why is that restricted to that? You know, why can't it turn into a motorcycle trail, or, you know, there's hunting roads that I walk down and clip with my clippers, you know, to keep them open for walking passage, but once I do that, if I want to take my side-by-side down there and retrieve my game, there should be no problem with that. So, I mean, I get the wear and tear on the road, but it comes back to tread lightly, you know, maybe change my tires out and put my tracks on, I don't know. But why does it vary, or why does it?
I think I could hear you up there on the.
Yeah, where, you put it at a level 1, so, but then it's still passable to some people, so how is that?
Or something like that, or
So a lot of times,
and it should be all in so many
make sure that they're
whatever
resilient,
road.
the water bar,
You know,
make
it's all
sure the culverts are open.
I don't think that
Yeah,
no, it's not.
so
I think it's against.
Now, those are
Yeah,
all
Sure, but then it's closed, right? Closed to motor vehicles, right? I mean, we're running into all those, so at what point, you say, okay, it's, we're not gonna maintain it, we're not gonna cut out the brush, but why close it? If I wanna go down it with my side-by-side, and put a cat on my side-by-side, what's the problem?
I'll do this,
Sounds to me a lot of what
So you're trying to,
her funding comes from
I get that.
we need to sell concrete.
Right, we need to reach out to Department Interior, it's up to them. But the question isn't,
Can we slow down some of the side talk, because I'd like to hear what's happening over here, and
sure.
I can't, and I'm only standing 15 feet away.
So,
Thank you.
you know, you limit it to level 1, say no access, because you don't want to maintain it, or whatever it may be. Say there's a sink in the road. So the culvert washed out up on Kansas Creek in Tillamook County some years ago. Didn't make it unpassable, it just washed the road out. You know, you still got four-wheelers down it and up the other side and on up the road. So, and my thought on that would be, it'd be cross at your own risk type thing. It almost like you're closing the road to protect the less common sense people is where I'm going, I guess.
And that is, you know, that is a
Then why
big issue.
close it?
Well, look at the, like the skis and the dirt bike trails and stuff, they have the black diamonds and they have the this. And they
Yeah,
have
just
that,
make it
labels
extreme
and-
level or
Yeah,
something. Don't
yeah.
change it to nothing.
Yeah.
Why spend the money to put a gate up and close it if it could stay open?
Well, something that they do in the Yamhill County area, I've noticed that they put a small berm, and the big trucks get over those berms, no problem, but your little Prius.
But what
But
about
if
the
it's-
renters that use adaptive equipment?
But the question is, when you cross that, now are you on a closed road? Or is that just a berm to limit what's capable?
Limit the access.
Okay, well then that's okay.
Yeah.
But when you dig it out and say, it ain't happening.
Yeah,
well,
tank trap it.
Yeah, and I don't care if it's a 100-yard spur or a 5-mile spur. It shouldn't matter.
You know, back to the culvert washing out, one of the issues with the government is when we know that there is a hazard there and we are leaving that open, we're gonna get sued.
You become
Okay,
liable.
so
The same as if somebody's
I understand maybe
hiking a
putting up
trail and there's a tree that falls across and you
okay, so
step
putting
over
up a
it.
barricade or something, but at the same time, it comes back to crossing at your own risk. I mean, I could drive up a logging road tomorrow, and it'd be perfectly graded, and a tree fall down, and I smash into it. Now, is that your fault? I get your understanding of liability, but then it comes back to maybe I shouldn't have gone that fast up the road, maybe I should have paid attention. So people need to start taking responsibility for themselves.
We're still
So
getting
then
to
it
the
stays in there
Yeah.
when we know about it.
Yeah.
But
We're
that's
gonna
where then the judge needs to stand up and go, well,
Yeah.
What
sorry,
about
you're
posting
retarded,
of it?
but
We-
What if
we
it's
How
get
can
taken care
someone
of.
sue you guys if they hurt themselves on their own land?
yeah.
Can you post?
Because this
There
is
you
public
post
land.
it.
Okay, I want that answer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you post a notice, does
Like
that
the injury
limit
you're on.
liability?
No, not even, no. It's our land. There
How
shouldn't
can
be a
someone
notice
sue
posted.
the
They're
government
suing
if they get
themselves.
hurt on our own land?
When you're just taking care of it.
Yeah, you-
Well, and if all it comes down to is maintenance, if you're not going to be out there maintaining it anyways, what's the point in blocking it off? If you're already not going out with your resources and your money and your time, what's the point of blocking it off with the public? We're going to maintain it as we see fit for our recreational uses and our uses that we see fit for our land. But if
And
you're not
everybody
going to
has
use your
different-
money and your time anyways, what's the point in putting your money into a gate that just blocks us off
or
from our
taking
land? What's the point?
equipment up to rip up the road. I mean, it seems like that would cost more money than.
I mean, it just seems like a whole lot of effort when you're kind of just avoiding putting effort into the road anyways.
Exactly,
we've already paid to put these roads in, we don't wanna pay to have to take them back out. So
Exactly.
this is our land, and the Forest Service works for us, but there's none of us here, I don't think, from the public side that own that land, that want our roads taken out.
I
So
understand.
your guys taking out roads is doing things against our will, the people.
I understand what
We
she
don't want
said.
it taken
She
out.
has the funding is what she's fighting against. And her funding comes from Congress. What we need to do is reach out to Congress. How many of you actually write to your congressman and say, okay, good, see, have you talked to them about the forest?
This
Is this one of the things that you have actually told them I want? So we need more people. You need to reach out to people, say, we need to talk to our congressman.
Tell us
Write
they can hear
letters.
you.
So I get the funding.
there's
I get the funding part. Okay,
Right.
I totally get that. Don't get me wrong. Okay, but in one sentence, it said we don't have enough funds to take care of all our roads. Okay, I get that, all our roads. Okay, and then in the next sentence, it's hey, our timber covers most of our roads. So then what percentage are we talking? Are we talking 20% that you can't cover? Are we talking 10% you can't cover? Is it 50%? Because most in my book is,
Better than half.
there you go.
Let me
Okay.
rephrase that. Most of the road maintenance that occurs on the district occurs through our timber sale program. We don't get right? That's a little different than what you
Sure.
just said.
Okay, and then.
That's what I meant. It's
She's
not
saying
that-
the money they do get comes from timber sales.
Fair enough, okay.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
with the same sense, you get funding from Congress then on others, right, above your timber, or no?
We get about, well, we get.
I don't need a
600
number, I need a percentage. What's it cover, percentage-wise? If we're covered 75% in timber for roads, you got 25% that's uncovered. Now, Congress gives you money, is it to cover 5%? We're still 20% short?
What we get,
Or is what I'm, going at?
What
And
do we
then,
need to ask
at the
for?
same time, instead of just, like I said, closing roads, putting in a gate, heck, let's put in a sign down at the bottom of the hill that says, look, roads are numbered this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you got, 5 being you can drive your car up, 2 being your probably 4-wheel drive or something, and 1 being your off-road vehicle. And when I look at the broad picture, I walk all over, I go to waterfalls all over the counties, everything else. You go up to, say, Niagara Falls by Willamina Creek and stuff, and I've seen cars parked down in the parking lot. I don't know how the hell they got them down there. Honestly.
but it is
So,
open road.
it is, it's open, and I'm not complaining that, but then it's not maintained. So, fair enough,
The
but
main road leading to.
I've been on skid roads with grass that are better than that
I
road.
guess the question is how much money is it gonna cost to decommission houses, keeping them,
So, yeah,
leaving them alone?
let me talk about, so we talked about key roads. So on the forest, we have 650 miles of key roads. So those are our connector roads that get a lot of recreation traffic, roads that people depend on, during hunting season, so main roads. So on our annual road maintenance money, I can maintain about 20% of our 600 miles per year.
On your annual money from Congress.
Correct.
So 20%, okay, so, and then what's your percentage off the timber that's covering the roads? Because you're covering 20% of that 600 is what you're saying. How many miles total without main roads?
I would say the timber probably does another 15% because we're talking about the forest.
Okay, then how is timber sales covering most of the road management or maintenance is what I mean? And you're telling me it's 15%, that is not most.
No, what she said was most of the maintenance they do comes from timber
Timber
sales.
sale, okay, so
So
15
it's-
and 20, so we're at 35% on roads versus, okay.
And then we have campground.
And those aren't
fees.
aren't
Sure,
those
Yeah,
not
and
key
the
roads?
other thing that I will mention is
There you go, where's the fees for
the tw-
camping and
So
stuff?
the 20% usually will focus on areas that we don't have any timber sales, of course, so that we don't have.
Sure,
maintenance.
that
So
would make
it's all-
sense.
It's all staggered.
Now what about, camping fees and stuff, say Hebo Lake camping, things like that, wherever you camp, you pay a fee. Where's that money go?
Those have to go directly into the camp, I mean, it could repay the road and camp.
Sure, okay, so
So
that
it goes
maintains
for-
that area.
Yeah,
And
So
that
that's-
the
campsite.
same thing with day use areas and all that stuff, where you have to pay to park and all that stuff.
Yep.
Has to go
Okay,
right
so
back
that
to the
covers
spot.
that area,
Just that.
which makes sense.
Not necessarily that spot, but a rec site, you know, that you gather fees on.
Well, and also somebody's gotta pay their wages.
So I've
No,
got-
and I agree with that, I understand that.
I've got a question about the roads on the map.
Yep.
So that's a done deal?
It's a signed decision, but that
What
isn't.
does that, I mean,
We're talking about keeping Peterson Ridge open is hopefully our
so
discussion.
it's a signed agreement, but does that mean that it can still be changed before the roads get decommissioned, or, what are the options for those roads that are on that map that are up for closure?
If you want to, come to me with a proposal on how to manage the roads, some roads, differently. We already talked about Peterson Ridge. I would sit down and have a discussion with you about it. Absolutely. And then,
So, since we brought up Peterson Ridge, what's the need for closing and gating off Peterson Ridge? Just so that the local people who live here also, because they're not aware of that, just for them and their knowledge.
So Peterson Ridge is one of those that I gave an example that we actually do close because of damage from public use. Okay, so down at the bottom, you've got the meadows that ODFW maintains. You've got private Van X property down there, and people get down there and they go mudding and they vandalize and they dump, and it is a absolute chronic problem. State Patrol came to us specifically, has come to us specifically several times and said, you know, we don't have the ability to help out in this area, manage this area. It's right outside of Toledo. Please do us a favor and put a gate on this road. So
this is one of those instances where it's being closed to keep the public out.
Right, because of damage.
because of damage,
Vandalism.
yeah, and I said that typically we would do that around local communities. And this is one of those that is right outside of Toledo. That fits that whole model of, you know, community, within the community, they tend to get more damage.
Is the community that you're speaking of, are they willing to come in there and volunteer?
They haven't been asked.
Yeah, I guess.
They haven't been told it's available.
Well,
They don't even
so
know about it.
what they're saying
There's
is
two
because of
gentlemen
other
that are
people,
from
you're
that
paying the
area.
punishment.
They didn't even know
Well,
about it
that's,
until I
And
that's,
that's
well,
wrong.
that's my point, that's my
I'm not
point.
paying a punishment for
If
somebody
I'm-
else messing it up.
You know, I mean, I lived in a big city where, you know, there was break-in, you know, every other block. You know, so what we did was we got together, we volunteered, and we did watch. You know, we didn't get involved, you know, we weren't law enforcement, but we got on the radio right away and we called law enforcement. And we stayed there till law enforcement got there, so, you know, they had witnesses, yeah, that's what this person did. You know, they were trashing a place, they were setting something on fire, they were just being nasty, you know,
I know.
and it was handled.
I know of an
Didn't cost
incident,
a lot of money.
they were wheeling up there by Mary's Ridge or something, some people took some pictures, and guess what, they got caught.
At Mary's Peak.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I think
having the public in there's a better outcome than just gating it off.
What
Having
about
the
implementing
eyes.
public byways or scenic byways to encourage
More
motorists
traffic.
and outdoor enthusiasts to use those areas to repel off the people who use those as dumping sites? Would that
Well,
be
you're gonna
something
find
that you're
people
willing
that are
to?
gonna go in there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and raise hell. They're gonna do that.
Well, of
okay?
course.
The idea, you know, and closing the road is just like this whole thing with, you know, gun laws. You know,
Punish
you're
the
gonna
many for the
punish
accident.
everybody because of a couple bad apples.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we wanna prevent.
And that's what I'm saying, you know, there must be a way that you can communicate with the locals. Hey, we'd like to keep this road open, we don't wanna close it off and say nobody can go there, but you guys gotta step up and help.
Well, and
We
that's
need,
why,
we need your help.
that's another reason why we're here tonight, and that's why we're having the public.
But,
meetings,
but
that
the
it
problem
becomes
is,
aware.
Coming up with ideas.
those people, the public you're speaking of, aren't here tonight, are they?
Well, and
We've
here's,
got some.
here's,
I mean,
here's the other problem. If state game came to you and said, we've got a solid problem in this one area, okay? If they had a solid poaching problem in an area, they'd have a game cam up and they'd figure out the problem. So what's the problem with them putting game cams up and catching some of these people that are littering at 3 in the morning or whatever it may be?
Exactly.
It's no different. They're coming to you with an easy solution for them. What you need to go back to them with is say, look, I closed this road, I closed another road, I closed another road. You ain't needed no more. Your job ain't needed.
Well, not only that, they just pick another spot to dump. They don't
They
stop.
don't.
Well, that's
They
just
just-
the point.
So
They're gonna
yeah, I
find
mean,
where-
there's
wherever
ways
they
to
can, that's
catch
where they're
them.
gonna do it.
What you do
Instead
is you
of-
put up the road cams, you send them a letter and a bill. My guys took this many hours,
Yep.
you cost this much in trash, you did this,
no
and you
different-
broke the law.
No
So
different
here's
than
your
those
bill.
kids that started the fire in the gorge. They should have to foot it.
Yeah.
If they can't afford it, sorry. You better start working,
now.
cleaning up garbage at these sites then.
Well, and
Because,
that's what
you know,
that's what I really want to start as a stewardship program or something working with the Forest Service that we can stop this
Yeah.
issue. It is becoming a huge issue. Too many roads are being closed, they're being decommissioned because of issues like this. My
Yeah.
number one concern is we have a lot of older generation and handicapped hunters. They need their access. These roads have to stay open for everyone and for children. I'm sorry, I don't want my 7-year-old child walking on a road that they're deciding to tear up because it's,
Yeah.
we can't afford to keep it open.
So,
well, and you talk about something was established 12, 15 years ago or whatever, and that's how it's been implemented for the last however long. I ain't that old, but I'm old enough to know that in the last 15 to 20 years, things have went nothing but downhill.
Can we?
And growing up in ODFW, I've seen it. You know, hatcheries get closed, this and that, and funding, I get it. I get the funding, but it's gone nothing but downhill. So maybe some of these policies that came into place just ain't working. So when do you say, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years just ain't enough. We
I
need
think
to.
they need to know that we're
eliminate.
behind them, just like
Yeah,
we're behind the
well,
law
we are.
enforcement officers.
Absolutely. I'll stand next to
We're
him any day of the
behind
week.
the forestry service
You know?
and nothing.
Well, that's what we're all here for.
Yeah.
Well,
we
next to
own
him probably,
these
maybe.
lands.
I don't know.
We-
You know what I mean? Within reason.
So the other issue, besides the garbage issue, besides the tearing up the roads issue, is, so you guys lease lands for timber companies to come in and log the timber.
Well,
That's
we
how
don't
you
lease
get,
the land, they buy the timber.
they buy the timber.
Right, so yeah.
So, is there any other access that's cut off from these roads for people who don't know how this works? Are roads closed? Are they closed for a certain period of time? Are they decommissioned after they're done with them? How does that work?
If they
How
come
does
in
the
and they
during
bid on
logging
it
process
to
work?
log it, their bid needs to include full maintenance of that road section that they used. If it's from the, okay, yeah, I mean.
And you do enforce that.
And enforced, I mean, not, hey, you took the timber, hey, you guys gotta come fill some potholes.
No, in fact, we are doing, we just opened up the pit at Lodgett, the gravel pit.
I know,
We've
we
been
can't
hauling-
shoot up there anymore.
We've been hauling it a lot.
So
Hauling
what
rock
is
a
the
lot on
biggest
roads.
impact on the environment as far as wildlife goes that you see from your studies?
With roads?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing with roads is sedimentation and the risk of landslides.
So as we drive by, it shifts down to the
Yeah,
creek
so
beds and stuff.
anytime you're having an active like native surface road, or just dirt
Gravel
on the
and
road.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, people are driving on it, so you don't have any vegetation growing on it. There's no ground cover there. Every time you have big rain events, it causes all that sediment to wash into
Now,
the
is that
stream.
bringing all the oils and gases and stuff that are dripping off?
Yeah,
Is that the
it
biggest
can bring
impact?
that stuff as well.
Are you aware of the McKenzie district and what they are doing in their watershed programs right now? They're actually adding, well, the way that they're doing it is they're adding more
No.
sediment.
Before you go into that, you asked him, does he know? So do you know?
No, I'm not fully
Okay,
aware
so,
of what they're up to.
so we're not even working in whole as a state.
Right.
Biologist to biologist saying, hey, this is working in this area, not.
Yeah, and this is how we're gonna maintain our roads this way. How come you guys aren't down?
We do, we have like regional biologist meetings and stuff like that where people get, it's typically on a regional basis.
And I know that from the fish hatchery side,
But
but.
is it once a year or is it more than once a year?
It's probably, about once a year. I mean, going off and paying travel per diem for all fish bio, it gets expensive.
So,
and our forests talk to each other. Chris has only been here a year. He's just getting his feet under him.
Sure.
Feet wet, and Harvard works with fish, his feet are wet.
So, but we do. I don't.
So what is the ability for the volunteers to come in and plant that will hold the land that's native? You know what I mean? So the road stage, right now you're.
But we do. I don't.
So what is the ability for the volunteers to come in and plant ground cover that would hold the land that's native? You know what I mean? So the road stays, right now you're saying, it's that issue, there's nothing growing and it's all sloughing off. What can be done to
In
support
certain
the land,
areas,
to
wherever
prevent
it's worse.
landslides and stuff? We used to do that in Southern California, we had to plant plants that were acceptable, not
Well,
harmful.
they should be.
And maintain because we lived basically on a cliff. So we had to maintain our walls so we didn't have landslides. So is there something we can do that would
There
help
are,
maintain that?
depending on the situation, there are areas where you could promote some planting. One of the biggest things I've noticed on this forest is the amount of landslide events. So as you're driving around through the forest here, you see all these old scars on the hill slopes where you have a bunch of alders popping up because they tend to be the first
like
species
weeds.
that'll pop up right after a big disturbance event.
Yeah.
And one of the things with having an abundance of near stream roads is you oftentimes have a lot of drainage culverts along those roads. They plug very easily. And we have 600 plus miles of road out there, and we still, when we're just out in the woods doing our field surveys in the summertime, we'll always come across these plugged culverts, and they've been buried underneath just hundreds of cubic yards of soil.
So will the stewardship help you in that? You could reach out to them and say, we need to clear these culverts, and then you won't have as much trouble?
My parents used to send us kids through the culverts. We had 3 on our road. Non-county maintained 2-mile road. And it would be like, go in and clean it out. We come out with poison oak and dirt.
but, you know, so we understand what you're saying, cause every single year our road washed out, every year. We're maintaining.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen some situations where you would literally need an excavator
Right.
out there, like a type
Yeah, we had
type
it in
2
cat,
excavator.
we used to have to clear the
to
mudslides,
dig it
so
out.
we get that.
Yeah.
And I know a small tractor excavator can cost
What about
$200 a
your
day
input?
just in fuel,
Yeah,
not
it-
hours
it
or
gets
anything.
really-
What exactly is your job so that people here can understand exactly what you do and what your effect is on these roads and road closures, road proposals?
Well, I'm the transportation planner, if you didn't catch that earlier. So every planning area we go to, which is a large drainage, I'll get my feet on every road and inventory the pipes, the slides, the culverts. If there's timber stands, I'll note those, relay
Do you
those.
go with a biologist?
No, I tend to be in front of the planning effort because, well, you need the roads to get to the trees, and the roads usually have issues because of years that we haven't been maintaining them. So I will walk every mile, look at every culvert, stick my head in most of them, and then give these findings to the team, which is comprised of the specialists on the district. Then we'll discuss the road, what's going on with it, and then what the team would like to see, done with this road.
Do you coordinate with him then?
Coordinate with him, coordinate with the hydro, coordinate with
Sure.
water systems.
Like 4 or
timber.
5 different
Specialists.
Specialists. 6 or 7.
That's exactly what Zinke was talking about. You get everybody button heads.
Well, we have an interdisciplinary team, we call them, that comes together and helps plan these areas. But in their butting heads, that's where I come in.
Sure.
And what do they
so-
butt heads about though?
Okay, so this guy says this this road may not hold, or it's good, and this guy says, well, the runoff is going to be in my stream, and then there's a guy that's the groundwater, and you come in and say,
And there's
sorry,
the
it's public
public
land.
saying we really need this road.
And
Now,
the
what about
public,
you,
and the
though?
public gets to give input twice on this. And at that point in time, during the public input, we could, because you're gonna say, hey, we need to shut down this piece of road because it's not maintained, or it's not this, that, or the other thing. Great, that gives us, the public, information to work with you on saying, hey, wait a minute, we wanna keep this open. And that allows us time to develop a plan, hopefully with you guys.
To do the work needed.
So I would say that we want a different model than that. We would wanna work with you
Before it's
first.
a problem.
Well, we love
And have that,
proactive.
and have those conversations. So when we come out with a proposal, it's not a surprise to you.
Yeah, we got it done on
That
highways
you
all
already
over the state.
understand, we've been out on the roads, we've talked about them, we've talked about the fisheries needs, we've talked about, the wildlife needs, that kind of stuff. And we might not agree on everything, but at least we've had those conversations. And when we go out with a proposal, it's not a surprise.
Well, we definitely have to have one POC, point of contact with you, that you can go, hey, we've got an issue, we're having to face either closing this road or we need to do this.
And that's what I want the
before it
Natural
gets there.
Resource Committee to
So
be.
we don't even have to get to a public hearing necessarily, it's gonna be, hey, we got this coming up, this happened. It snowed, this part of the road sloughed off, we need like
Right.
17 man-hours of
Right.
shoveling, or
So-
whatever,
so
as it happens.
Yeah, I see that as two different processes.
Yeah.
Like you've got this group of folks that are, willing to work on our roads and kind of are the volunteers and, willing to work in partnership in maintaining the roads. And then this other process that we were just kind of talking about is the planning of when we go through and plan our landscape assessments, we call them.
Right, so that would be the
So that would
proactive.
be, engaging in talking about road closures, road needs, that kind of stuff. Like in Indian Creek.
So proactive and reactive. Reactive is, oh crud, we just had
Right,
something happen.
Right.
We either have to close it or
Right.
fix it.
And the truth is, we've been through all of our watersheds now. Indian Creek, we're going through there our second time, and we planned that 15, 20 years ago. And so, I would say, as far as once we enter these areas, some additional road closures. Really, it's kind of the cleaning up the mistakes we made, 20 years ago. Like, for like an example would be like Indian Creek. We decommissioned a lot of areas but we never really decommission them, and so we have these old road templates that have failing culverts on a landscape that is probably the most prone to landslides, probably one of the most prone to landslides on the Coast Range. And so there's a concern over landslides triggering landslides. There's, you know, houses at the bottom of those valleys, that kind of stuff. And so it's cleaning up our legacy that we left out there. And so that's a lot of what's going on in Indian Creek, because we are in our second time around now. And so we're really not closing anything else as part of the proposal. In fact, we're adding miles because we're fixing a landslide, and we are linking up two roads that were closed. They came together, stopped at the landslide. The Gibson Tie Road, I don't know if anybody goes around there, but you had to go back around, you know, that way. So we are moving the road a little bit, and after 5 years, feel the geotechnical specialists think that road's stable enough to rebuild it. And so I think that's what we're getting into now, as opposed to kind of these fresh areas and looking at it as a, you know, where should we close and where we shouldn't. But it also would give us some opportunities to look at stuff like Bridgetop roads for maybe to open for stuff like handicap hunting, or areas that you know, we can still look at if you know, kind of almost like a, you know, adopt a road, or kind of the Curry County model that I was talking about earlier.
So if we come in and we do the road maintenance that, you know, general public Joe can do, you know, no heavy equipment operators and stuff, because I know that takes special licensing. Can you take those hours and offset them by dedicating those hours to your heavy equipment operators to do some of the work we can't do? So we maintain 4 miles that just needs brush clearing, some limbs cut up, and trees moved off, and then your guy comes in for 2 miles and cleans up a landslide that's 15 feet long.
Digs out the culvert.
I mean,
I
can you
think
offset
that's the
that
best
if we
way to
take care?
work.
Yeah,
I mean,
if we take care of the minor parts,
Yeah,
then you guys can come in and take care of
so
the
when it
heavy.
working
comes to-
together would be definitely the
Yeah.
best approach.
When it comes to the funding issue, obviously you've got a budget,
Yeah.
just like any other federal agency or
We
any
do
other
now.
government.
We didn't last Friday or
So
whenever.
when it comes to a point where you say, okay, well, we're gonna have to close this road because we don't have the funding to maintain it, and you know, we as Joe Public feel like, you know, that's a road that should be kept open. How do we come to an agreement to reallocate some funds from someplace else?
Or our labor,
To come to
allocate our labor.
a point where, you know, we can keep that road open that we choose to have open, so that we have access to our land.
We talk
How
about it. You know, we meet and you say, this road is very important to us for these reasons. And either that, or we do things like pull the culverts and put rolling dips in them instead of culverts, and try and make it as basically keep it open in a
We
neutral
have 2
state,
of those on top of our 2
and
culverts.
allow it to close by itself. And then if you want to go in there and brush it or do whatever, so it's not closed to public use, but we're not going to maintain it.
Why don't we see more of that rather than?
No, that's what she's saying, they
decommission?
don't gate it, but they don't maintain it.
We actually have a lot of those roads out there that
And
are
that's-
still on the system, where we identified them for closure and either didn't have the money to do it, or didn't get it on the schedule or whatever, and so they closed up by themselves. They basically closed
Well, if they're like-
self-decommissioning, basically, is what they
Well,
are.
if these guys are like most federal agencies, you're told you get to work this many hours a week. You go overtime and I'm gonna write you up. I mean, they are limited to on how many employees they even
I'm
have.
not talking about when you actually tear up the road completely.
But actually decommission it.
Yeah.
Decommission
So-
it, take
Or
heavy
put boulders in
equipment
the middle of
up,
it.
rip it
So-
all up, make it impassable.
Right. So the areas that we do that in are areas that are very prone to landslides and mass movement, and most of that's triggered by our roads. So most of that's triggered by our roads. Places like Indian Creek are critical, that kind of stuff. Other places like Millwright Beaver probably isn't as critical for stuff like that. So it depends on where we are in the landscape. It depends on you know, if we're going to spend that amount of money on decommissioning roads, they're typically on larger, right in the valley bottom, the road's coming apart on its own, and we can't leave that prison there next to the stream. And so if we're gonna spend that much money on it, it's gotta have some real strong natural resources values. If it's up on a ridge top, we might pull we might pull the culverts, we might not pull the culverts, and we might just allow it to do its own thing.
Be reclaimed.
Right, and that's because the resource value of doing that isn't as critical as spending a bunch of other money somewhere else. It's all about prioritization.
So how many more proposals are you guys looking at right now?
So we do one about every other year, and we go to one area and we do our public involvement, and it takes about a year and a half to get to finish a project.
So
This one is we've been on it for 3 years,
So
and that's because of the public engagement. piece
so
of it.
each region does their own, like you do, so you have one
Each
now.
district.
Each district, and.
Yeah, Hebo's just signed Skinner Rock, and they're into Sand Lake right now.
So, how many districts are there in Oregon?
Well, in Oregon, I don't know, that's a
You
good
guys
question.
gave me a sticker
This
the
is
other day that
District
said all,
6.
the Forest Service lands are all ours. Well, here's one that I wanna give you on the way that we really feel about what's taking place in Lincoln County.
Sure.
And we encourage you to please stop closing any roads that have any length over a mile.
It's not actually the first time I've seen this.
You're a proud
I just fly one along.
At least it says Forest Service instead of Forest Circus.
And give me a sticker that says these lands are our lands. Well, it doesn't feel like that. The bridge that you guys are pulling on Drift Creek, it wasn't even talked about tonight. It's nicely hidden behind the legend on that map. There's a lot of other roads that were also, that you and I kind of briefly discussed about, like Peterson Ridge. You said there's a good possibility that we could save it. If we implemented a stewardship program right now, and we volunteered for at least 2 to 3 days a year of solid cleanup with as many people as we could possibly muster from the 3%, would you be willing to take Peterson Ridge off the proposal right here and now?
I don't have, I could if I would, I would if I could, I don't have we have to engage in public involvement.
So you
With
can.
that.
Public involvement's right here.
I will,
You already talked, are you
I will
advanced
commit to you
that
to
you'd be able
engage in
take
that
off?
conversation with the intent of allowing you to do that.
We have to get the conservatorship in place. She can't do anything until she
Yeah,
knows it.
let's
Right
talk
now,
about
it
what
has
you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it, and I'll absolutely commit
So
to it.
we need to come up
We
with a
got the resources
stewardship
to make
program.
that
But
happen.
I need to talk to some folks first, like
Yeah.
So
Well,
another,
ODFW, like Van
Hunting
Eyck
season's
Properties, and
coming up
let them
quick,
know.
So
we
another-
gotta keep
another-
our lands up. We gotta keep our refrigerators full. A lot of us use these lands for more than just driving and recreating on. That's what feeds my family. Peterson Ridge, I've gotten over 9 elk in the last 20 years off that ridge. So that's one that's really hitting hard. 98% of the people from Toledo, if there was an emergency that they needed to get up onto a ridge, where do you think they're gonna go? They're not gonna go up the river and go towards, Harlan and that way. They're gonna come up Peterson Ridge. That's gonna be their #1 escape route for them too. There's so many reasons not to close Peterson Ridge.
Well, I
It's
think
not
part of
even
what
fun.
we need to do as a group, and this is on us more than it's on the forestry, is that we all spout about public lands, my land, my land. We need to remind the public that as it being our land,
We need to make sure.
we have our rights, we cry about our rights. Well, with our rights comes
Take care of it.
responsibilities. So we have a responsibility to call our fellow man who owns our lands, call them to the carpet on their behaviors that cause this damage. So,
I've turned in vehicles that are sitting
I
there
know,
in
I'm
lots
saying,
right now.
I'm not
3 years
talking
ago,
about
they're
that,
supposed to
Corey.
You're not the only one.
What I'm talking about, Corey, is an outreach to the public to remind them that these public lands come with a responsibility of the people, not just the forestry department. It is beyond that. It is
And
every
that-
person.
Then they need to publicize that a lot more.
Exactly,
Right. We
exactly.
do.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
that's the
Not us,
Not
them.
Well,
Also,
that is true.
not, I mean, us also.
Well, even
But
as community
they need to
members,
reach
we
out
need
and
to
say,
make
look,
sure that
we're gonna close this, and I'm not talking in a secret meeting in a little room with 50 friggin' people. Take it to Coin 6 News, take it to
Yeah.
Channel 8, take it
Yeah.
to Channel 2. I could go on and on about it, but I mean, and I'm not trying to harp at you, but
Okay,
it's,
so
you know.
here's something that is massively powerful for us. They could take it to Channel 2, and Channel 2, I know the media, they suck.
No, and I get that too.
It
But it
doesn't-
gets
it
it
doesn't-
out there for people to hear. So then we could
They don't
double
suck
this
for
amount or
everybody.
more.
But it's
and-
up to them on if
Unfortunately-
they cast or put in a news story.
Unfortunately,
we
yeah,
could push
it
them
doesn't
to
fit their
put it, but they
current
might not
narrative.
run it.
And I get that too, but then they need to start taking priority on things, you know, at a state level, or take responsibility, or then they need to be held
Oh
responsible.
no, Michelle has to get her mommy voice on and be like, you all are all grounded. The public did this, not the forestry department, not our hunters, y'all
Yeah.
the public.
We do
You're
need to
guilty.
make it aware that
That'll
the
get
public
them to run
is
the
the
story.
issue and the reason why it got
Yeah.
closed. And we need to reverse that.
Yes.
That is the major issue. If the Forest Service in general is saying that this is a big reason, which Deschutes County, if you look at China Hat,
Good for the rice.
see everybody's
Be
like,
glad
oh
you're
yeah,
not-
we all know China Hat.
Destroyed.
It is, I grew up playing out there.
They closed the
I
ice
grew up
caves.
playing in the woods, and to see the people do this, it is horrifying. Yes, we do need to do something. We do need to start cleaning up our lands. And Lorraine's right. If we're gonna sit here and say our land's our lands, we do need to stand up and we do need to do something about it. It's kind of the Forest Service working for us at the same time.
Well, exactly, and I'm not putting it all on them.
No, none of us
Okay,
are.
so-
They're the only ones with the gate.
And
That's
it's no different.
That's
like,
right.
you
See,
take
that's
it-
the issue. Is they're the ones with the gates and they're the ones building the water.
You take a salmon survey and you say, look, this sediment's affecting the salmon run, blah, 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 right? Okay. I can tell you from a fact that half the salmon run comes from diminishing fish hatcheries or their production. Hands down. When I was a kid, 1,000,000 fish or something. Now, 100,000 in the tank. I mean, so it's not your responsibility in that sense. And then it comes back to funding. But then along a fuzzy line here, we look at it, oh, well, is this affecting our salmon run? Is this or this or this? Maybe it's this road. When we really need to source it back constantly.
But
Back.
see, what is exactly your job? Is it just the roads that impact the watershed in those riparian zones? Or is it
The stream.
more than that? Or is it just those specific areas that you are doing your research on?
And then do you work with, say, the biologist of Fish and Wildlife that puts logs and stuff in the stream, and then you tell them, look, when we have a flood, that stuff comes down and wipes out our road, you know, I mean.
Actually, we do that.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, do you,
So you're
and,
friendly?
so
So
do,
what
yeah,
exactly
do you,
is
and then
your
how far does that go, really,
So,
I mean,
so let me
because,
give you an example on that. When we worked with the local folks in Mapleton, well, Indian Creek, not Mapleton, they were concerned and said, your logs are coming down.
yeah,
And so we said, we took them out and we said, here's what we do in the upper watershed and here's why. And they said, you know, I think we're okay with this.
Sure.
Just don't put them lower in the drainage. And we said, okay, we'll keep them in the upper drainage.
sure, and I say,
So
don't,
that's the kind of stuff we can
But
work through when we,
what input is he giving you to determine working with the public in those specific areas?
So-
That's what I want to know,
so-
is what his job exactly, is he just in that specific area where that specific road is? Or is he that whole creek?
well, we do our analysis on a watershed basis. And so the interdisciplinary team that has biologists, a silviculturist, who's the forester that does all the prescriptions for the timber sales. We've got wildlife, fisheries, archaeology, logging systems, who else am I missing? Hydrology, and we have a team leader who is responsible for making sure that that everyone's kind of playing
So
nice
all
in the
of your input
sandbox,
is
and
only a
also
small
making sure
portion.
we implement our objectives, forest
And-
plan objectives.
So since we've had a chance to talk to everyone else, what is your stance? What exactly is it that you provide on these roads and where? Is it just in the logging units or is it in the whole sense of that whole specific Forest Service road?
More of just the timber sale units and the temp spurs to get there off these main roads. How these main roads tie into haul routes to the mill and, you know.
so which roads need to be maintained if that was logged in an area?
Basically my job is telling them how to get the wood out of that unit to the landing and which road it's gonna likely haul down. And then it's up to the engineer to say, well, it needs this much work, this much money get it up to the standard to haul timber off of.
So you kind of police
And
it
is
to
that
make sure it's
your
being done
job?
right?
Or is that somebody else's?
So my question there would be, when it comes to hauling timber
So
out,
you do already.
and you say, okay, look, we got
In
40
place
acres
roads.
up here, we're gonna timber cut, and you're gonna take this road down the mountain. One, that road needs X amount of work beforehand, okay? Does that lie on the person that's gonna log it? Or do you guys do it prior?
Well, there's two aspects to that, of course, because nothing's simple, right?
Sure.
So one of them is that if it's routine maintenance, like blading, adding rock, brushing, that goes on the purchaser. If it's upkeep of the infrastructure beyond what they need to just simply haul down it, that falls on the Forest Service. And like culvert replacements and bridge repair, stuff like that. And so what we do is I think we wrap that into a timber sale contract.
Right,
Yeah.
which would make
Basically
sense.
pay
Okay,
the
they
purchaser to do
maintenance
it.
it, so.
So we pay the purchaser to do that work, but the
You guys pay the purchaser,
yeah,
the
that
purchaser doesn't cover it.
so routine maintenance,
Right, routine, okay.
they pay for it. That's part of their responsibility. Because they're already doing routine maintenance and they are typically fairly good at road repair and all that kind of stuff. We wrap it into the timber sale contract for them to do the culvert replacement or whatever on.
Sure.
Because they're more efficient.
Yeah, and they're in there anyway, and they're already doing maintenance and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so, no,
The loggers are efficient.
The loggers are more efficient.
Oh,
okay. They have all the equipment and they want that timber out. So, to sum up what I'm hearing today, there's really two reasons why roads get closed. Roads get closed because it's becoming a hazard, because you put in a road and naturally it messes with the ecosystem and the structure of the mountain and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And it produces a slide. So that's one way that a road
Or it
may...
impacts natural resources, yeah.
Or what?
Or it impacts the natural resources.
Yes.
Doesn't have to slide, but yeah.
Yeah, it has an impact on a stream or
Right.
something.
Yep.
Now what it sounds like is slides, and in the very bottom of a valley is where these roads are at the greatest risk for being shut down as far as like the integrity of the road and
I would
mountain
say yes.
environment.
Some mid-slope, but yeah.
Most all the roads start in the valley.
And then the second reason happens to be criminal activity.
Right.
And that is something where I think that one of the parts of our proposed resource group, we could really drive a cultural change working with law enforcement, social media, and putting the message out there. You guys come down here and you do this, we are going to find you out. And you are going to have to deal with your due process, which means you're going to get kicked out of the woods, and or you're going to have fines, and or you're going to do community service, and or all the rest of that.
So the helpful point to that, with criminal activity, would be him working with us, saying, look, here's a list of the laws. If you see somebody, you can cite them for this,
Yeah,
and we'll follow through.
and you figure out who the point of contact is. Like,
Right.
is it this gentleman here?
Right, or is it OSP game cop, or is it, Lincoln County Sheriff, or is it, you know what I mean? As
Yeah, I would my general, the state guys, pardon me, but they seem out of touch.
You and
But
me
the
are
problem
agree
with
on our
that,
state.
Sam, is you're dealing with state property, county property, federal property, and so,
Private property.
you know, it's not gonna do any good to call him if it's state property, right? I mean, you probably still have police powers.
Would you pass that on to the sheriff?
But-
There
if
are
it wasn't-
certain situations where my
Yeah.
authority's stretched over, but predominantly,
You're
I'm
Forest
supposed to be on the
Service.
green.
Right. So,
maintaining that.
you have to have those, you have to know where you are when you see, whose property it is when you see that dumper to know who to call. So that's educating ourselves.
In my county, when we get outside of city limits, we call county.
and they handle it from there. That's,
Right.
there's a point of contact at county, you pick up the phone, hey, I just saw this, license plate,
If they
dumped
choose
here.
to use OSP at that point, then that's them, but
Yeah.
that's still
That's
county.
exactly what I was asking
Yeah.
about Lincoln County
So, I
Sheriff's
mean, in
Office.
general then, if it's a problem area and OSP's calling you saying, we got a problem area, well, great. We need to totally get on that and figure out why, and then a solution to solve that problem. But then with that said, he needs to be reaching out to the county, because he answers to that county sheriff.
That's right.
May he
Sheriff
like
is
it or
the
not.
ultimate authority, that's right.
You know, and if the county sheriff goes out there and says, what are you talking about, you know, or he might go out there and go, yeah, okay, we definitely got a problem, how do we solution this?
And the county sheriff can turn around and push for a bond to have another deputy, or, I mean, there's a million
There's other
different avenues.
routes,
Yeah, there's a million different avenues, or he can call local resources like the Four-Wheel Drive Club.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on down here in this valley? Do you guys know anything? And I guarantee you, you start asking people, hey, do you know what's going down here? Yeah, it's the red Ford pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, social,
So
It
those
worked
Jones,
20 years
those
ago,
Jones
it'll
brothers
definitely
are
work now.
freak up there, yeah.
More eyes than the hills.
And we
I
got
mean-
enough guys with hunting cams that they would bring one out for a weekend
Exactly.
and set
Oh,
it
yeah.
up and
Oh, we got
volunteer
like
to
8,
go.
I'll be happy to go
They'd do it in a
walk
heartbeat.
one up, you know?
They would, in a heartbeat.
So we would be happy to help you. I mean, even explore different avenues of keeping these open, because
But then we need help back, so
Yeah.
you need to reach out to us and say, look, this is a problem area, OSP's reach out to us, and, by the way, we've talked to Lincoln County Sheriff, and he says that, you know, he went out and checked it out, and, you know, be it trash or whatever it may be, here's a partial list or something of contact information for who needs to be contacted right away in areas, and or citations that civilians can issue and then go to court over.
Well,
actually,
you can
Mackenzie.
arrest somebody, but you can't issue them a citation.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, so Mackenzie, you were talking
We
about
can
how
also
the
detain somebody.
But you can call and have
I'm
somebody
going
cited
to
and
start
then
a
go
natural
stand for
resource
that.
committee here in Lincoln County. And these are all the topics and all the issues that I want the Natural Resource Committee, because of how small this county is, to cover. So I want to work with the Forest Service and stewardship programs. I want the community involvement. I would love to see more of the loggers, the fishermen. I know this is a huge logging community. I have talked to a few of the older generation loggers that live here that are still logging and still driving truck. They know what's going on. So the more of your area, your community over in the Toledo area, and some of the Siletz community, the more people we can bring together, the more we can work with the Forest Service, the more we can implement some stewardship programs, and we can keep our roads open. She's basically telling us we can keep our roads open if we can keep these crimes, the garbage, and everything else down. So it's up to
So-
us who live in Lincoln County or in adjacent counties, because I'm gonna do the same to help out other counties also, that we need to get this started. It is extremely important.
Well, there's
I don't-
also an entire clan of Oregonians
Yeah.
that come to the coast for coastal
And that's
hunting.
another thing.
They
Putting it
pay the
out
extra
on
to come
public
to the
service
coast to hunt.
announcements, working with the Forest Service on any proposals that they're doing. That is my main goal here in Lincoln County. Setting up the alternative escape routes. I will be working with ODOT, I will be working with Michelle again, I will be working with the CERT team. I have the Sheriff Patrol. There is a landowner association group out of Yahats that actually helps fund the deputy patrol sheriff for the woods. And Weyerhaeuser does pay for a portion of that. So just to let you guys know, it's based on acreage. However many acres, they pay a certain percentage every year. So they are paying into it, into keeping a sheriff patrol. And the major thing is just getting out there. We need to let the other community members know that this is happening. I don't think a lot of people know. The more people who know, the more people who are going to get involved. Peterson Ridge is a huge one for us in Lincoln County. That needs to be open. It's an alternative escape route. It is great for hunting. It's a great place to recreate. We need to keep it open. There are lands, let's keep them open.
We wanna work with you, not
Yes.
against you. We
Where's
don't
your
wanna come
sign
in here and
for?
say, keep them open, period.
I don't
But
know.
we need
I have another-
feedback. We
I
need-
don't wanna see the budgets being spent on decommissioning a road that can be let go naturally. Why spend the Forest Service's resources, their budget, to decommission a road that is just, in 10, 20 years, is just gonna go away naturally anyway? Let's leave those roads alone. Let's see what we can do to work together to keep these roads gate-free, water bar-free, and access to all, handicap and not. That is, and little children and strollers, I mean, they need to stay open. My mother is handicapped, she loves to go hiking. The only place that she can go is Cape Perpetua because it's the easiest hike for her. There's some spur roads out here that are a couple miles long that are some of the easiest hikes for her. Leave them open. There's no reason. There's no
And
reason
if
to
they're
close
gonna
them.
overgrow and close themselves, then
Then
yeah.
We will take care of
You'd
them
be
as
amazed, once
public
it
landowners.
overgrows and the tall timber gets above your, you know, your salmon berries, that salmon berries don't survive then, and you know what I mean, the cover blocks it out. That skid road becomes awesome for hunting in 5 to 10 years. You can walk right down it, nothing you could really drive down, maybe some of them you could, but they might close temporarily on their own for a matter of 10 to 15, 20 years, and then they might open themselves back up because that vegetation just won't survive underneath that canopy.
Something that we don't want to see, that I've seen in so many other ranger districts though, are those roads left open and then posted, no motor vehicles.
And I can hands down tell you that, I've seen that
Oh, yeah.
all over the state.
Oh, yeah, the area I hunt in
including-
Eastern
I
Oregon is
think
that way.
that maybe we could work with the Department of Agriculture and the Forest Service as a whole, because that's gonna be so hard district to district. We should figure out a way how they could implement signs, like everyone was saying for the
non-maintained.
skiing signs. That's all stuff that we definitely need to talk about. That's stuff that we need to nip in the hiney, because that is important. When we do maintenance level 1 roads and you guys are closing them to public and to road, or to vehicles, that's cutting off our access. There's no point in closing it. If it's just a budget reason, let us take care of our lands too. Pass it on to us. That's what we're here for also.
I see the difference, you know, in somebody going down a meadow and just wheeling the shit out of it, or somebody that uses it to cross country. You know, that's, and to halfway tread lightly. I might leave tread marks off my side-by-side or four-wheeler or whatever else, even my rig. But if I'm not down there ripping it up and I'm just crossing through it, that shouldn't be a problem.
Then you got that one guy that goes.
That's what we need to reach out with, and if that one guy does it once, he's gonna do it again. So then game cams, sheriffs, patrols, whatever it may be. So I get that, but if he does it once, he's gonna do it again.
The other issue comes back to funding, and we were talking about the bridge that this legend is covering up. So at this point, you know, what can we do, and this is kind of an example question, but what can we do to keep that bridge open?
So
Or get that bridge replaced?
That's a good question, and the gentleman that brought it up earlier left, but actually the bridge is a county road.
It's a county bridge. There's
Yeah.
nothing the Forest Service can do about
So
it.
then that needs to come back on the county.
But what we've
So
done.
I will be contacting the county about that.
what
So
we've
that's a
done-
county road that turns into a Forest Service road?
Correct, on the other side. But what we've
Okay.
done when the bridge is unsafe and they've got it blocked with Jersey barriers, we're only a 7,000-pound rig. But because we work with the county wherever we can to do joint maintenance. But anyway, when we found out that that bridge is gonna be removed because of the safety issues, we know that creek is pretty important for launching boats. So we actually opened our road from the other side, extended it, so now there's access from both sides.
That's nice.
So there are things that the Forest Service is working to, the Drift Creek. I'm very thankful you guys did that, because otherwise we wouldn't have access. We would have had to drive all the way to Waldport, all the way down 34, all the way to the landing, and go all the way up the road, and then, I mean, still, how many more miles is that? So by them working with making alternative routes for us, that's even better. I know there are some county roads. I've been working with the county commissioner. I have been working with Public Works and the road department. I will be having another meeting with Michelle or whoever I need to have meetings with transportation when it comes to implementing some alternative escape routes. That will take a little bit because it's been kind of hard. I have to track down a bunch of people. But I just want to say thank you for everyone and their input. I think it was extremely important that we did do this, especially people from other counties also, because we need to do this in your counties and see what we can accomplish there also. Thankfully, we have a wonderful district ranger who is willing to work with us.
Thank you, District Ranger.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that.
I've met a lot of district rangers. There were 4 different district rangers in the 35 years my father worked for the Forest Service. I liked 2 of them. The other 2, they were on their own agenda, and I didn't appreciate it. So I've seen this, and working with Michelle is going to be a lot easier than I think, and I think we're going to get a lot of good things done here. Thank you for everyone. Anyone who is local, I'm on Facebook, Mackenzie Johns. I work at O'Reilly Auto Parts. If you guys want to, please join us in starting a Natural Resource Committee. That would be wonderful. Contact me. I mean, it's going to be a long process, but we need to get something done. We need to make this more aware to the public.
On the resource committees, can they bring in extra people for the labor part of it? So in other words, they live here, they're local, I'm on the other side of the mountain. If they have a planned day to do X amount of work, can they bring in a crew, or do they have to be part of the
And
committee to do
we'll
it?
work out all
So,
those
yeah.
small quirks. Right now, it's just, hey, who wants to be in a Natural Resource Committee? Let's get it started, and then we'll start working out these little quirks on what we need to do, how we can work with them, what we can do to implement scenic byways, what we need to do to, I mean, there's all sorts of things that we need to do, and there's hundreds.
Yeah, and that would basically be the resource committee that would be working with the forestry department and other departments, whatever they may be, to get that plan out. And then at that point in time, when they have the plan, we're gonna go do this, then the resource committee will send a net call and say, hey, we have this activity on this day at this location. And then, yeah, then we could go.
And as much as the road closures matter always, our landlocked lands that are unaccessible because of private, and we'll call it Warehouser tonight, they need to open it up. They need something needs to happen.
Okay, but I think that's gonna have to be driven by looking at the laws.
Well, and I get that. I get that.
Approaching the counties and our agencies at the same time.
Sure.
And building a team to get those gates.
See, and I think that it'll be a little bit easier here in Lincoln County because of the tsunami risk and the earthquake risk.
Well, and I get that.
And I think there might be a little loophole somewhere in the legalities that they have to have them open so that we have emergency escape routes. I'm looking into it. I don't know if there's any type of loophole.
I found it the other day, but I do not remember where
I
it was.
can't find a unit map to save my life of Warehouser anywhere.
No, it's not Warehouser. It's a specific federal law that's in U.S. code, USC, whatever it is. So it's like USC 8 is for immigration. Well, they have a U.S. code specifically for highways, byways, and other ways. And it covers that, and it very specifically talks about gating and shutting off roads. It very specifically talks about that, and I think that's going to be extremely beneficial.
I think I bumped across it the other day too with the BLM thing over in Redmond.
It wasn't just Redmond, there was one in Utah.
Yeah, or something too.
And, yeah, and that was...
Such and such law is going to get them in trouble is what is going to happen. But
when you
I get that, but what I'm saying is there needs to be some solution to that. If there's a landlocked land that we can't access, it needs to be accessible by road. If not, then they need to do some kind of land swap or something.
There's a group here in Yachats that they're a landowner association group. They actually do that. That is their whole goal. So I'm actually going to be contacting him and working with him. It's just with all this.
Can I make just one remark before I feel like we're getting ready to break up here?
Sure.
But on this, it talks about the 2009 travel management plan, right? And it talks about 424 miles of road to be put into storage in the future, 261 miles of road to be commissioned in the future. That's that overarching plan. Right now, that's what they expected. That's not exactly what, I mean, I don't want to see a, like, social media outburst that says the Siuslaw National Forest plans to close an additional 424 miles of road. Okay, so that's not the intent of those numbers.
That's not the review I'm
that's-
giving this meeting.
Yeah, that's the intent is.
Who reviews the plan that it was put in place 10 years ago almost?
Yep.
To make sure that it's actually working, or, I mean, and does it just kind of, okay, it looks like it is, or is it reviewed by committee, or
We
even a
have a
committee of the
monitoring plan.
public?
We have a monitoring plan we put out,
Okay,
2014.
is
Right,
that,
Rob?
is that, is that compelled with the public?
Right,
I
Rob?
mean, is that touched base with the public, and it looked, and it overlooked at, and said, you know, it really looks like this is working out, or this just really isn't working out, or, I
I
mean.
guess I guess you could guess there is no civilian oversight committee. The forestry department.
This
is
is really the
yeah.
first time
But I
people
almost-
have engaged me in a very large
I love it, don't you?
about
This is
road
small.
management, about road management.
I mean,
That's
it's Thursday
I mean,
night.
that's-
This
that's
is
the reality.
I gotta
To be
hustle to get
honest
here,
with you.
yeah.
I'm surprised
The
that there was
information of
here.
we're having a meeting doesn't get out to the public. Because
I will be okay
if
That's
with
what I-
authorization.
more
Yeah, the
people
forestry
come
department
to
put
the
an ad out in the
This is
year
a
for public
very
notice.
small group
You put an ad in the paper.
for that.
Well, and
That's
that's
it.
what we need to do.
Public
We need
notice.
to work with our public outlets, our
Community
public media
hearing
outlets,
on
and
and whatever the
ensuring
issue
that
is.
they are putting out what
So
our
that is
department
something
values.
else that we can maybe look into, is how do we get you to be able to allocate funds in favor of public announcement.
Or even that, maybe they, like, email list, email to somebody,
That radio.
Right now,
Right now,
right now, because these ones are done signed, you said.
yeah.
Those are 2 years old. What proposals are you working with now? How many roads are you looking at closing? And when will we have access to see those maps and that proposal?
Yeah, you say that one took 2 years to kind of, or a year and a half to 2 years to combine and figure it out. So, yeah, that was 2 years old. What's the
What's
year and a
being
half,
worked
2
on
years
now?
of work right
So
now?
we are working on Indian Creek. The comment period closed, and we are responding to comments right now. We modified the proposals pretty significantly because of some input we got from the public. I said we haven't gotten really engaged about road management, except for Indian Creek. There's a lot of local landowners that are really interested in how we manage the roads out there. And so, we are not closing roads, any additional roads that aren't already closed. We are taking care of the legacy we left out on the landscape related to culverts and roads failing and that kind of stuff. We are doing things like increasing, rerouting the Gibson Tie Road to open that tie road back up. We are going to reroute a road around a different slide, come around the back side of the ridge, so we're doing some stuff like that. I think the numbers themselves, Rob,
I
or
don't
what?
remember the numbers straight offhand, but I think it's the first EA that more road miles are
Added.
than that.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you say you're working with landowners down there because that's a big area, okay? And obviously, like, you took our information, you want us to keep us in the loop. So, maybe you need a form, or, because maybe it's a private confidentiality, maybe not, who knows, but maybe we need to be merging together. So, you're talking to landowners, you need to say, look, landowners, we got a group of people, how about we all start, either we need their information or they need our information if we all want to work together, you know what I mean?
I'm just
I think-
curious on.
I think what you're gonna see is that the landowners will end up teaming up with the resource committee that you're talking about.
And that's when.
And
Sure,
that's
but-
how that dynamic's gonna
But
come
if we're all
together.
working together and they're wanting our help, and we want your help, then, and you got their information, shy of reaching out with a phone call saying, hey, mind if we pass your guys' information on to a group that's trying to keep the roads open, blah, 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 because you guys are doing the same, or this or that, then
Or at least set up
So
a
I'm not
meeting.
sure,
something.
those landowners' names and addresses are on the tax. Or you
Tax
can go
lots.
on the
That-
tax.
that's
well,
something that-
and I get that, but which ones are working with you? See, that's
Oh.
where it's at. That's what I'm saying, get the group together,
Yeah.
That's
get
what
the
we do.
people
We
that
do
have
that.
the general
We
ideas
do that.
together, so,
We have field trips.
sure.
Well,
And
and
they're
once we
there.
get a natural resource committee in
Right.
place,
Then we'll
then
be
all this
moving
stuff will
forward better,
fall
yeah.
into
Yeah.
place. But we are out of time. I hate
Sure.
to cut
Yep,
everything
yep.
short. So the DeNoble House has been absolutely wonderful. City Manager Carrie Kemp was the one who suggested them to me. They are donation based only. If we could do a hat pass around, at just a couple bucks in the hat, I've got some donation money set aside for them. That would be wonderful. I would love to be able to use their facilities again in the near future. So if we could definitely do a hat pass around or something. that would be
Mention the
great.
sign up again. before we-
And yes, the Forest Service sign up, it's right next to Justin at the front door. That's for the Forest Service information.